I played 100 Days of Sunhaven. Okay, fine. We actually played 112 days because, of course, as is now usual on this channel, we'll play through a full year. If you've not heard of this game, it's a farming RPG, but with a much heavier focus on the RPG element. You'll see what I mean as we progress through the video. But if you've been subscribed to my channel for a long time, you'll know that this game was actually my first Let's Play series. But I didn't get all that far because I suddenly became obsessed, and I mean truly obsessed, with Stardew Valley. This game was in early access back then, but it's since had its full release. And since I last played, they've added heaps of new content and features, so I couldn't wait to get stuck in again. Since I didn't know what was new and possible in this version of the game, I didn't set any specific goals other than to get as far as possible this year. As we go through, especially in the early days, I'll explain some of the features, so if you've not heard of this game before, or if you're still on the fence about whether or not you want to pick it up, maybe this video can help you decide. Before we get into things, I also wanted to let you know that you can actually change the length of the days, which can be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or 40 minutes. I left it at the default of 20 minutes, 15 felt too rushed, and I still wanted the challenge of getting everything done on the 20-minute length, so I didn't want to extend it beyond that. This game is enormous, so I'm gonna have to work out managing my time. Oh, and also I'm really excited to announce that I have a Steam key for Sunhaven to give away to one of you guys. Stay tuned till the end of the video to find out how to get involved. If you've been enjoying the 100 days content, please do hit the like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more where this came from, and without further ado, let's begin. First things first, we have to create our character. The races here aren't just aesthetics. They each have a unique perk, but I ended up going with the human because I like the idea of crafting 20% faster. My next big choice was my profession, which determines which items you start with, and let me tell you there are a lot of them, but I thought it would be wise to get some early ores, so I opted for Toolmaster. I spent a few minutes customizing my look, and then I was ready to jump in. You actually start the game viewing a cutscene with Lynn and her mother, who's preparing Lynn for her big move to Sunhaven. She'll be arriving there the same time as you. We meet her for the first time on the train over to our new home, and of course, we'd tell her she's welcome to sit with us. At this point, we get to choose our charm. I didn't know the exact effects of these, but I thought the peace one sounded nice, so I went with that. And let's be honest, I pretty much forget this exists after this point. We were having a lovely little chat when suddenly everything went dark. It seems we encountered some strange fog, and it really does look ominous, but oh my god, is that a dragon driving the train? We stepped off to meet Lucia and Nathaniel, who seemed to be really concerned about this darkness, but it wasn't immediately spreading or anything, so they showed us to our homes. One super cool thing about this game is that you get to pick where your house will be on your farm, so I picked this cozy little spot up in the corner. When I went to check out my humble abode, a woman called Anne just kind of invited herself in. She's a merchant who noticed I didn't have any tools, so she wanted to sell me some along with 15 wheat seeds. I gladly took up her offer so I could clear some land and start with getting some crops going. This meant I completed my first quest. In Sunhaven, most quests have a bonus reward which you get to choose one of, and this time I opted for the farming XP. From that quest, I got my first level up in exploration, and there are an extensive set of skills that you can unlock as you progress. The first one I picked was the air skip so I could get around quicker. Believe me, you're probably going to want this ASAP. I decided to move my crafting table over by my house for easier access. I set off some planks because we'll need these for a chest, and whilst clearing more land, I got my first farming level. I chose to have my crops sell for more gold, and skills like this one have multiple levels to unlock, so we have a lot to get through. I noticed I had a quest to harvest 40 wheat, but I only had 15 seeds, so I went and located the general store. Here I was introduced to Emmett, who works here along with basically every other store. The dialogue distracted me, so I browsed the goods and left to check out the bulletin board where you can find the calendar and some quests for extra rewards and friendship. My next stop was to Solon at the blacksmith, who described me as flirtatious? What? That's an awkward first impression. We were then interrupted by this adorably clumsy dragon who caused a rock slide, which I had to help clear, or literally do all the work by myself while he stands there and watches. I seem to have partially gained distrust, and my reward for that was to run an errand for him? I'm not liking this guy so far. Up to the town hall I go, I guess. Lucia introduced me to Kitty, who is quite a character, and together we hatched a plan to make some bait for that dragon. And to do this, I was going to have to catch some fish. Oh no. For that, I'll need a rod, so I met Peter at the docks. He gifted me one of his rods and tried to demonstrate for me, but he accidentally hooked whatever that thing is. He did manage to catch me a chunky grouper. But you, no fishing for me just yet. I brought that fish to Kitty, who will have the bait ready for me tomorrow, so I returned home to carry on cleaning up the farm. I did manage to gain a few more skill points this day, but these come so often that going forward I won't be showing every unlock because it's going to get repetitive, so we'll just check in and take a look every now and again. This time, I opted for the weekly free rose seeds. On day 2, I planted some green root seeds I picked up from cutting the weeds. Bernard, who works at the town hall, sent me a mail to let me know he deals with building related services and gave me a welcome gift of some fences and some lanterns. I found Kitty by her house to collect that dragon food, then stopped in at the general store to buy as many wheat seeds as I could afford, which was only 12 at the time, but I got these all planted immediately. With that now dealt with, I brought the dragon food to Solon, who asked me to go and collect his dragon trap order from the general store. Not gonna lie, I did not move to Sunhaven to become Solon's errand lady, but whatever. Emmet fetched the order for us, which really was pretty much just a box, but I brought it back to the quarry so that we could rig it up and await the little dragon. It didn't take very long to show up, but there is no way that that dragon is going to fit in that tiny box, and it didn't go with the bait either. Solon had another idea and pulled out what looked like a half-eaten mutton drumstick. But he was going to bop the poor little dragon over the head with it. Don't you dare. I mean, look at it. Way too cute for that. It slowly started to approach us, but in a kind of friendly way, and with a bit of convincing, he agreed to keep it around till it grows up a bit. Maybe this will soften up the tough guy. With the job well done today, time to go home and clear more of the farm again. On day 3, I spent a good while watering my crops before finding Anne at the entrance of the farm. I thought she was here to try and sell me something again, but this time she was here with a gift, which happened to be a basic furniture table. That'll save some resources. What I didn't realise until I was sat here scripting is that furniture made at the table technically costs more, which I feel like is the opposites for these sorts of games, but at least you don't have to wait for things to come into rotation at the store. Lucia was also patiently waiting for me to plan my first dragon's meet. All I'll have to do is meet her in the town square tomorrow at 10 AM. I picked and ate my first couple of berries, and the food is awesome in Sunhaven because most of it gives you a permanent stat boost. These berries, for example, give you a permanent boost to max mana. You should know though, the more you eat, the less you gain. I then accepted both bulletin board requests wanting more gold and XP, and took summer today to explore the town and steal its fruit. I bumped into Nathaniel who needed 10 coal. I'll handle that later because I wanted to check out the seasonal merchant as I'd be gathering a few spring tokens. You get these for each season, each with its own unique rewards, and you can buy tokens with gold too if you like. I had nowhere near enough for anything at the moment, so I'll revisit this towards the end of a season. In the centre of town, there's a magical looking dragon fountain which you can visit every week for a boost in max mana. I came home to retrieve my coal from my chest ready for Topi's quest, then attacked the stones on my farm because I still needed 9 more than Nathaniel. Approaching the bottom of the farm reminded me I have my own beach complete with forage and treasure. This loot goblin is pleased. The chests give you exploration XP too. This time I chose more wood cutting damage, but it also gave me access to the next column for the next time. Topi is actually my neighbour, so it was easy enough to hand in his quest. Then I went to find Lucia again to give her some sand dollars from my beach that she had asked for. Back on the farm, I found my first snackoon blocking one of the entrances. It's after some apples, which I already had, and 10 wheat, so I'll have to grow a total of 50 to fulfill the hefty harvest quest. Then the rest of this day was for whacking more stone for coal. On day 4, I got some berries in the mail from Lucia, and stopped by the town board to accept the one quest I could do. I used the map to locate Nathaniel and chased him down with the coal he asked for. It was then time to meet Lucia in the town square for my first dragon's meet. This is Elios, the sun dragon. What a creature. He is the guardian of Sunhaven. After a light grilling about my innermost self, I think I convinced him that I'm not a threat to the town, and he even thought I had a sort of dragon energy about me. The reward included another 10 max mana, which is huge at this stage, and this time I chose gold as the bonus reward because I do still need more wheat seeds. I asked Lucia to guide me home since the road back was dangerous. Now my next major goal is to reach level 15 in any skill. We have some work to do. I was happy to find some wheat seeds discounted at the general store, but those were nowhere near enough. I did also buy the onions, then bought another 20 full price wheat seeds. On the way back home, Topi asked me to find his notebook without telling his parents. Then it was time to get everything planted. Another thing that's nice about this game is that you also get farming XP for tilling and watering, so doing these things manually doesn't feel quite so bad. That afternoon, I decided to take my first trip to the mines, and I love the little minecart animation. These mines work a bit different to other games. To get to the next floor, you need a key. You can find rusty keys on each floor, but that'll only work temporarily till the end of the day. To make this permanent though, you need to craft metal keys, and the type of key you need changes the deeper you go into the mines. I wanted to be efficient and start with a copper pickaxe instead of that rusty one, but I wasn't a high enough mining level to use it. Annoyingly, I'd actually already sold off my rusty one, so I ran to Solon's hoping he sells more, and thankfully he does. Let's try that again. My first priority here was to gather as much copper as possible to make those keys so we can progress through the mines, and gain that mining XP for our quest. For our level 5 skill here, I went with increasing the daily gift of gold. It's literally free money, so now I'll wake up with another 120 gold each day. Now that I was level 5, I could use the copper pickaxe, so I really didn't need that rusty one for long, and this copper node dropped me my first rusty key. What's also lovely is that unlocking the doors also gives you mining XP. There are so many ways to level in this game. The second floor had the first vases, which can drop gold and other treasure. Another win for the loot goblin. One of the rocks here also dropped a book. I didn't yet know what these were for, but you can read them if you wish for some extra lore. I didn't do this because I really don't like reading. I headed back home to sell off my sapphires and went to bed. And by the way, the pass out time on this game is actually midnight. On day 5, I woke up to the satisfying sight of my first wheat having grown up. A bit less satisfying were the baby dragons eating my crops, and this weird dandelion monster called Weedle who was here to spread dandelions all over the farm. I harvested my wheat and got level 8 farming, and here's a look at my current skills. For this one, I made the discounted seeds even cheaper. Scything up the dandelions gives me free farming XP and a chance to drop seeds, and you can get the dandelions themselves which sell for 1 gold each. Someone tell me why this is a bad thing? With the wheat we just harvested, I could feed the snackoon, and not only does it just move out of the way, but now they drop plushies. Time to start a collection. I tried to see if Weedle needed anything, and honestly, it seems all he wanted was a game of jump rope? That thing honestly looks kinda lethal. I'm a bit terrified, but I'll give it my best shot. All you have to do is press space when it says jump, except I literally messed up on the 3rd jump. My punishment was for them to spread even more dandelions, and it's not a small amount at all. I mean, you could even see it as a reward in a way if you don't mind clearing it. I decided to leave Weedle alone and cut them down. Because of them, I've not even left the farm today yet. When I did eventually get out, I noticed that Jin was nearby with a quest to plant some flowers around town. I checked out the farming store where Emmett sells a variety of seasonal seeds and the seasonal scarecrow to ward off those baby dragons, but I couldn't afford this yet, so I left it for now. I went to find Rosa at the barracks for her quest, but then I got this cutscene where she gave me a quick lesson in combat, showing me the sword and the crossbow. However, at the end of the lesson, I could only pick one, so I went with the sword, because especially at the start, I find close range combat easier. Coming back through town, I hunted for spots to plant Jun's flowers, and then I came across Kitty who needed help with her flowers. I handled this pretty much right away. This was probably going to be the easiest golden XP I'd get. Weedle granted me on day 6 with another round of dandelions. I ignored that for now and just harvested my crops to get level 10 farming. I received my first free rose seeds in the mail, cleaned up some of the dandelions, and tried to take on Weedle again for the jump rope challenge. To beat Weedle, you need to get 60 jumps, and the further in you get, the faster the jumps get. I did significantly better the next time around, but still, I failed. I gave up at this point because the farm was getting kinda overgrown. I did get a tip to say we can ask someone else for help with the challenge, but I'm just going to leave Weedle alone because they'll leave on their own by the 9th anyway. I planted the seeds I got from the weeds, but for some reason I didn't plant the roses and I honestly can't remember why. I went to Jin at the library to let him know I planted the flowers and collected my rewards before locating Giuseppe's toolbox by the river. Here you go, sir, 1 toolbox. Doing these quests is satisfying because you do get a decent amount of rewards. And for my level 9 skill, I increased my movement speed because there's so much to do and so little time. My evening was spent on farm clearance and placing the spring scarecrow I made using 10 wheat instead of spending 1200 gold on one at this early stage. I remember why I didn't plant the roses earlier, it's because I wanted to make sure I had a scarecrow so these don't get munched. Though it's worth knowing, they only have a 5-tile range, so the top row here is unprotected. It was another morning raining dandelions again on day 7. Thanks Weedle, I appreciate the freebies. I found another treasure chest washed up on my beach, then checked out the museum for the first time. The officiator just rejected our museum's application to some sort of association, so I guess it will be up to us to fill this place with artifacts. I went through a lengthy pledge of allegiance with Covington about the ethical collection of artifacts, and just like that, I'm ready to help out. I actually had an artifact with me at that very moment, and it took me a minute to figure out where to put it. Like, I didn't even notice the very obvious doors at first, but eventually I found my way into the Hall of Culture. This place is a bit like the community centre. We've got a variety of bundles, like the foraging bundle, seasonal crop bundles, a combat bundle, an alchemy bundle, and an exploration bundle which I actually have something for. These fairy wings are the reason I came in here in the first place. I also managed to donate some of the stuff for the foraging bundle I happened to be carrying, as well as some of the spring crops. My next stop was to Pinto with a water crystal for his headache. On day 8, my farm was showered with dandelions again, and the next round of wheat was ready. That got me the 40 I needed to complete Anne's quest. With my farming skill point, I added more chance for my crops to stay watered overnight because the watering does get tiring. I let Anne know about the good news about the wheat, and it seems like she was just messing with me when she set me this task, but I still got a reward from her, including picking out a tome which gives you an extra skill point. I went for the farming one so I can max out that retaining soil. Whilst I was at the store, I grabbed all the discount seeds and picked up some others from the counter with the museum in mind. I then ran next door and picked up one of everything I could afford for the same reason. I got it all planted immediately. I was after some starfish for Kitty, but I didn't have any and my beach only had one, so I ventured out east to find my first enemies to fight, successfully defeating my first crabs. The town beach had the remaining starfish I needed. But gosh, isn't this beach a mess? I found some more town fruit to steal and a random chest with some wheat seeds and a farmer's ring, which I put on right away because this gives a 5% bonus to farming XP, and I'll take all the XP I can get. Passing by June in town, I found he was in need of cookies. I didn't have any, and I don't yet have a way of cooking them, so I was relieved to see his quest didn't have a deadline. I donated a few more bits of forage to the museum, then it was over to Kitty with the starfish for her secret project, which just turned out to be a hat. I returned to the farm to clear more weeds when I hit level 15 farming. Elios spoke to me right that second and summoned me for a meet as soon as I can. For now, it's pretty late, so I went to bed. It was now the 9th, so Weedle finally left. The dragon business was important, but my crops are more important, so I dealt with that first. I got out into town a few hours later and passed by the fountain on my way up to meet Rosa, who kindly escorted me up to Elios, and he asked me for help with a protection spell because he wanted to spend some time away to find out what's going on. To do this, I'd need to fetch him a glorite crystal from the forest. My reward for that level 15 skill was picking out my first iron tool, and I went with the axe to speed up the wood chopping, and obviously the first thing I did was go home and test it, which meant I could give Lynn the logs she asked for from the bulletin board. The reward for this quest got me enough gold to buy a shimmer root seed I needed for the museum, as well as a honeyflower seed. The rest of my evening was spent in the mines gathering as much copper as possible because I wasn't going into the forest without armor. The next morning, I handed Kitty a sapphire for her dress. She seems to keep offering fish as a reward. I took them this time because I wasn't sure if I needed this one for the museum, and I wasn't ready for any real fishing yet. I had another sapphire with me for the Hall of Gems, but when I got there, I found someone trapped under some rocks. I wonder how long she's been there. I rushed to her aid and she seemed grateful, but she needed help filling this room with mining samples. For now, I only had the sapphire for the gem bundle with me. I went to explore the east side of the beach to find more crabs, so I used them for combat practice because I was scared of dying in the forest and thought I could use some levels. I kinda ended up still dying over here anyway, and woke up in Dr. Warnhart's hospital. I was asked some questions to make sure I was okay. Turned out all I needed was a bit of rest. Since it was my first time here, I didn't have to pay the fee this time. I came home to find my copper had finished smelting, and now I can earn gold with everything I craft thanks to a skill unlock. With that copper, I made one key for the mines, and a copper chestplate as my first piece of armor. Whilst waiting for that, I went to check out the aquarium at the museum, where I found Patrice, who happens to be Pete the fisherman's sister. Apparently, he's too lazy to fill up this place, so it'll be down to me. Who'd have thought? There's a bundle for treasures you can fish up, not that I have any yet, then there are tanks for other locations and one for each season. Considering I hadn't fished yet, I literally haven't seen any of these before. The back wall is the large tank, which has most of the ordinary Sunhaven fish. Well, actually, not all of them. Some of the fish you won't need to donate, which means there's an enormous amount of fish to be caught in this game. I came home excited to see my armor was ready. I couldn't wait to get this on my body for a little protection, but it wasn't working. Turns out you needed to be level 5 combat for copper armor. Guess I have some grinding to do, so my night was spent slaying crabs, and I managed to reach level 4 by the time I turned in for the day. The skill I picked for this one was a damage increase to all attacks. After dealing with my crops on day 11, I handled a request for the doctor who was asking for 25 logs, and with the extra XP from this one I hit level 15 exploration. I chose to boost my max mana by completing town board quests. I wanted to make today a mines day as I was in desperate need for copper for various things. A few floors in, enemies do start to appear, which meant I could hit level 5 combat. The skill I picked for this one was that final damage boost, but most importantly, I could now wear armor, even if I did forget to actually put it on for a while. I left the mines with 38 copper ore, which I got smelting overnight. It was really satisfying collecting it all on day 12. I used these bars to make an upgraded watering can, and a couple more bits of armor. I found someone called Albert outside the museum that morning. I'm not sure we actually met yet, but he had a quest for me to retrieve his sword from the forest. I'll do this. At some point. Not entirely sure when. I had my first attempt at fishing today, and to explain how it works, just cast your bobber somewhat near a fish shadow. When it bites, click to start the reeling, and just wait until the bar is in the catch zone to hit the button again. This mud catfish was a relatively easy catch, but you'll see later how much harder these can get. I also made a cooking pot to put in my little house and checked out the expansive recipes, each with their own effects. There are even more to unlock later, so I left these for now because the sheer amount was a little overwhelming for me. I shared some of my wheat with Liam for a quest before braving the forest for the first time. I found another Snookoon here who was looking for some apples and some monster drops. It'll take a bit to grind for these. I found a free treasure chest next to one that needs a key. There are several of these dotted around the world needing various strengths of keys. This one, for example, needs an iron one. Not far into the forest is the Glorite cave where I found a few bandits trying to steal loads of stuff. I didn't feel ready to fight with them, so I just paid 1,000 gold, and they went on their way, so the crystal was now mine. I wanted some more forage, so I carefully made my way through the forest. Though not careful enough apparently, because I accidentally aggroed everything, and I really should have run at this point, but I tried to fight and died. On day 13, I had a small variety of crops ready. I planted my weekly free roses, then found Topi's notebook on my way to the museum where I donated a couple more spring crops, and another piece for the forage bundle. I wanted to return Topi's notebook, but got distracted by this box which had a free potato seed in it. Don't mind if I do. Anyway, in return for finding Topi's notebook, I got a few rewards, including 3 cookies. I only need one more for June's quest now. This also got me level 18 farming, and the skill I chose here was to shorten the production time of honey. Not that I'd made a bee house yet. All I needed for this project was wood planks, so I got to chopping down more trees, except I quickly got distracted by fishing? Actually, I really don't mind the minigame on Sunhaven. Distraction over. Scrap what I said. I hate fishing and it sucks and it's boring and... The Glorite crystal had now been with me for long enough, so it was about time to hand it over to Elios, who will be using it to protect the forests in his absence. I got another 10 max mana as one of the rewards, along with more XP. Once I was escorted back to town, I mined the evening away for more copper for more keys. On day 14, I continued with farm clearance. My goodness, there is so much of it. I also tidied the town beach because the scattered wood just makes it look gross. I crafted myself the final piece of armor as well as a loom requested by Giuseppe. I then tracked down Kitty with another 5 starfish for another hat once again. She seems to be pretty demanding because when I checked the town board for the day, she had another request, this time for a wooden table. To make that table, my evening was for chopping wood. However, completely forgetting about that furniture table right next to my crafting table, I started making another. When I woke up the next morning, Elios somehow spoke to me, warning me of some troubling news, and I should come and see him right away. Nothing is more important than my crops though. Wait, what's happening? Where's my camera going? Who's that? What are you doing? Please don't destroy my crops. Okay, I think we're good. Wait, there are ores? Maybe this isn't so bad. Still not noticing the furniture table and gift of me, I placed my second one by the furnace and got that table crafting for Kitty. I then spoke to the angry rock. Well, I tried, but all Krusty did was roar at me, so I decided to start the quest lines to remove him. I started the process of removing all of his mess, though to be fair, I was enjoying the extra ores. With the wooden table now done, I could visit Kitty by her home to give her the new addition. I got my weekly blessing from the fountain before handing in the loom to Giuseppe. Then to find out what I needed to do to remove Krusty from my farm, I spoke to Nathaniel who agreed to help, as long as I let Rosa know he'll be busy for a bit. I was near at the south of town though, so I visited the blacksmiths first to see Lynn, except I noticed Solon also had a quest. He wanted help gathering more coal. Dude, don't you live directly next to the mines? Over to Lynn to tell her about the problem on my farm. She was happy to help, but she wanted me to pick up her pickaxe from Solon. It's only a few steps away, so this is a little weird. Maybe they've had a falling out or something. I don't know. But I handed over the new pickaxe and she'll go over to the farm to help. I didn't realise it was already afternoon after all that running around, so I best make haste to Elios. Sorry I'm late. His suspicions were correct. A spell had been cast by Dinas the Moondragon over Withergate, turning the monster city all dark. I'll need to confront Dinas, but he's wildly powerful, so I was advised to first visit the elven city Nelvari and seek out Nivara the World Dragon. Getting into Nelvari won't be easy though, as I have to prove my friendship to them before even gaining entry. To make a start on this, I had to speak to Amanda at the library about a book on Nelvari. Annoyingly, this is one of Sunhaven's guarded texts, so I'll need permission from Lucia to view it. First, I wanted to turn in a quest for Tonya, but I came across this encounter. One of the people stealing the glorite asked for forgiveness and wanted to stay in Sunhaven. For some reason, the decision was up to me. You know, one of the newest people in town. I decided to allow him to stay. Hopefully, he makes the most of his second chance. That made me forget about Tonya, so I spoke to Lucia at the town hall about that book. Since Elios gave me this task, she was willing to grant the permission, but only if I craft some delicate gloves, since this book is ancient and very fragile. I was lucky to pass Tonya on my way back through town so I could give her the materials she needed, and for my bonus reward for this one, I chose farming XP. When I came home to make myself a loom for the gloves, I noticed a racket above my house where I found Lynn and Nathaniel in the very slow process of destroying Krusty. This guy had 100,000 HP, so I tried to help them chip away slowly for the night. On day 16, I checked to see how Lynn and Nathaniel were doing when Krusty showered my farm in rocks and ores again. I got that loom crafting and harvested my roses before cleaning up rocks once more. The loom was now done, so I was ready to make those gloves, but first I had to craft the fabric for them. Whilst waiting for that, I intended to help with the destruction of Krusty, but I got bored of that task in literal seconds and went to clean up the ridiculous amount of rocks instead. This made me realise that I had some mail from Lynn. She's been mining Krusty. How has she found the time for this? I wasn't bothered though because she sent me iron bars and adamant bars, so I was very grateful. For now, I had some items to donate to the museum, including some of the bars sent by Lynn. The loom had enough time to finish the fabric, so I put it back to work with those gloves. I unlocked 4 mines floors that evening, which got me to level 13 mining. Here are what my skills currently look like, and this time I increased the chance for ore nodes to drop extra ore. Of course, I didn't leave without grabbing all the copper I could, and I even gathered enough coal for Solon's quest. Day 17 started with more rocks, and some of them landed dangerously close to my crops, so I got rid of them immediately. I wanted to get rid of Krusty once and for all, so I spent basically all day helping to beat him up, when finally, after days of mostly Lynn and Nathaniel's work, we did it. Krusty wasn't dead, but shed those sharp layers to reveal a smoother, happier rock. The angry elemental beast, now content, takes its leave of your farm, striking out into the world to live its life and follow its rocky, entirely stone-related dreams. I even upgraded to an iron pickaxe in that process just to make it a teeny bit faster. It also dropped a pet called Pebbles. I didn't have a leash yet and I didn't want to place it on my farm. It felt too soon, so for now it will live in a chest. I was just happy to be able to clean up the farm with the peace of knowing my progress won't be undone tomorrow. I got so engrossed in this that I ended up passing out that night. It seemed that Dr. Warnhart was happy to have dragged me into the hospital last night because he was literally waiting right by the bed with a quest for me, because that's not creepy. I wanted to go to the library because I had those gloves on me, except I didn't think about the fact they wouldn't be open at 6:20 AM. I did then notice this broken statue, which could be fixed with 50 stone, and I had all of that on me. This summoned Giuseppe, who was a bit nervous about the task but agreed to fix it with a bit of encouragement. I handed Anne a sapphire whilst I was waiting for the library to open, then Amanda reluctantly helped me with the Book of Nelvari. The page I was shown was in gibberish to me, it just so happens to be in an elven language, and Amanda knew of an elf who hangs out at the tavern. As a thank you for her help, I donated the 500 gold she asked for on the town board, and I opted for some extra fishing XP which got me to level 4. And for my skill, I picked to increase the lure radius. I picked up Warnhart's order from Catherine's store, but before handing that in, I came home to plant the discount seeds I brought from the general store. The doctor got what he ordered, then it was off to the tavern to find Edwin the elf. He had no idea what the text said either because not all elves can speak Nelvarian, so I relayed this news to Amanda who didn't really seem to care. I prodded her a bit until she told me of something called the Stone of Tongues, which is hard to find, but perhaps a merchant might know of it. We know just the person. Anne has obviously heard of this thing, and she was willing to loan it to me in return for a favour. All I had to do was dig up her stuff in the West Forest because that's where she's probably hidden it. First, I decided to fish. This one was a little harder, but I just about caught it. Instead of handling the quest tonight, I hung out on the farm and cleared it up a little more. On day 19, I headed out to the forest west of my farm to find an awesome looking snackoon. This one was asking for crops I had nowhere near enough of, but I gave the bits of forage that I could for now. It didn't take me too long to find all of Anne's dirt piles, though I did have to get in some combat practice on the way. I had to return Giuseppe's toolbox to him again. I guess someone must have stolen it from him whilst he was working. Then using a peach I found in the forest, I completed the foraging bundle. My first bundle rewards were a large magic potion, a foraging ring, and a hardwood ring. I had some copper to smelt back at home, then I found a small child also called Emma who was in need of flour because she spilled hers. As clumsy as me, I guess. I found Anne at her home and handed over the treasures, and she pulled out the Stone of Tongues for me, as long as I bring it back, of course. On day 20, I harvested the few crops that were ready before finding Peter hanging out by the entrance of the farm. He wanted to see how the fishing was going, and came to give me a small fishing net and a permit so I can use these on my farm. The permit can be upgraded later, but this exists to prevent overfishing by limiting the amount of nets you can use. I'll deal with that later because I wanted to get straight to the library. Not only was Amanda shocked that the Stone of Tongues actually existed, but it really worked. We could now understand the poem. Not that we know what any of it meant. Apparently, my best hope is to check in with Edwin again. This was the day I realised about the second furniture table. Only took me 6 entire days. I was home looking how to make flour, but apparently I could just buy this from the general store. This isn't actually true. You actually buy it from the bakery. So I picked some up along with some other cooking ingredients for whenever I might need them. I gave the bags of flowers to Emma she asked for, and in return I got a sandwich which was kind of adorable. Up at the tavern, I asked Edwin about the meaning of the poem, but first he wanted me to pay off his bar tab, so I hopped over to Mari, who let me know it wasn't actually gold he owed, but grapes? Specifically, these were elven grapes, which he had promised to grow but failed. Edwin happened to have some seeds on him, which he kindly parted with, and apparently these only take 1 night to grow. I actually remembered this task from my first time playing this part of the game, and I thought I'd try being smart and only planting one of the seeds because I know I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and it'll be dead. These grapes are worth a lot, it's not worth wasting. Those other seeds I'm watering now are just the weekly blue rose seeds. I planned to use them for a bee house, but I really should have placed this first, then the flowers, because now it's not really gonna work. On day 21, you'll notice the grape quest still says I need to plant and water, but all I needed to do was hit E to remove the dead plant. I didn't notice this prompt and thought my scythe wasn't working because I hadn't planted them all, so annoyingly I planted the rest of the grapes and didn't notice till I watered all of them. Whoops. I removed the dead crop and was asked to return to the tavern, so my smart idea would have worked and I could have kept all of those seeds if I actually noticed. I brought Edwin the dead plant, and the key detail he missed out was that I had to infuse the crop with mana, which I didn't know how to do yet, so I had to go find Lucia the Archmage to ask her to teach me. This lesson was to take place in her office in the town hall, and really all there was to it was to hit E and the flowers were alive again. Lucia did let me know that infusing lots of crops will very much drain our mana, but things like food and potions will help, and she helped me out by gifting me a couple. I made haste back to Edwin with my new skills, and I was grateful to receive another bundle of grape seeds. I went home to infuse all the ones from this morning, and even with the 2 potions, I still ran out of mana before I could get to them all, so I just did some more farm clearance whilst waiting for more of it to regen. I finally got the last one done late that afternoon. You'll notice that the quest still says I need to plant and water loads, but for now I wanted to try and ignore this and see if harvesting the existing batch will progress the quest tomorrow. In the meantime, I was back to cleaning up the farm. The following day I was blessed with rain and all of those grapes popped up. Harvesting all of those did not progress the quest, but I did gain 2 farming levels for doing so, opting to unlock the alchemy table and my first spell, the earthquake spell, which can till several tiles at once. I still tilled the ground manually for now because I was saving my mana to infuse the extra batch of grape seeds. Once again, I had nowhere near enough mana to cover them all. Whilst waiting to recover more, I started crafting a baker station. I did, however, complete the steps to satisfy the quest, so after donating another 500 gold to the library and sharing some fabric with Bernard for the Lantern Festival, I ran over to the tavern to show Edwin those grapes, and he seemed to be really impressed that I actually managed to grow them. Annoyingly, the poem had no significant meaning. My efforts weren't completely pointless though, because it showed I had a special connection to nature, and that should help me enter the secret elven city. I gave the good update to Lucia, so now my next big step will be to seek out Nelvari. But before I do, she wanted me to meet her and Nathaniel at the barracks. I dropped off some fish at the museum, then found out that there are also extra rewards down at the front desk, including a choice of bonus rewards of gold or community tokens. I'd also been accumulating these from quests, so I headed over to Bernard to see what I could buy with them. Looks like this is where you can get romance-related items, some gifts, and various potions, including a memory loss potions, which you use instead of actually breaking up with your date. Once I'd run all these errands around town, I had recovered plenty of mana to be able to infuse the rest of the grapes we planted this morning, and I had to make sure we did before the day was up, or we'd wake up with them dead the next morning. The baker's station was also done. I ran out of room in my crafting zone, so I placed it somewhere random to check it out, and this is how you make flour, which makes sense now that I think about it. I stayed up late chopping wood for more planks. Then on day 23, I woke up with nearly all my crops ready, including all those grapes. Look at the rate my XP bar is going up. I gained 2 more levels which I used to max the earthquake spell, making it cheaper to use. I sold some of the grapes off as well because they're worth a decent amount of money. Amanda was asking for a donation again. What is she using all this gold for? I paid it anyway because I want that XP. One of the other crops that was ready this morning was a shimmery, which just so happens to be the last item needed for the spring crop bundle, earning me a spring scarecrow, a seed maker, and the simple magic fertilizer recipe. As I was making my way through town, I found Peter needing to return a book to Amanda, so I handled that for him real quick, since it wouldn't take me long. I chose the fishing XP as the bonus, which brought me to level 7, so I picked the skill that makes the fishing minigame a little bit easier. I stopped procrastinating and headed to the barracks to meet Lucia and Nathaniel. They wanted to commend me for what I'd already done for Sunhaven, and they gave me the Seal of Sunhaven, which gives me another 10 max mana. Nathaniel seemed to slightly panic because he didn't know gifts would be involved, but dug me out some soldier's boots, which increase movement speed a little, and provide a bit more armor and defense than my copper boots. It was a bit late in the day now to go exploring the forests, so I stayed home to make summer scarecrows since we're now in the last week of spring. I also inspected that Seal of Sunhaven, and now that it's had its effect, you can literally just throw it away, which feels kinda wrong, so I ended up just chucking it in a chest for now. On day 24, I awoke to even more crops ready, and I fished a bit on the farm. That was until I remembered I was to travel to Nelvari today. On my journey, I found an injured fighter in the forest, and I said I would get him some help, but I really hope he doesn't die because I'm not doing that right now. I ventured out far enough for the trees to start changing colour. This must mean I'm getting close, and I'm picking up new materials. There were quite a lot of enemies who were a much higher combat level than me, so I avoided them at all costs. With a bit more hopping, skipping and jumping, I found these tree guards at what must be the entrance to Nelvari. I got interrogated a bit about who I was and why I was here, so I explained I was here to see the World Dragon. Salix still wasn't sure that I was a friend, and they needed help from their friend who they were having trouble reawakening because they'd run out of mana, so I just walked up to the sleepy tree and infused them. Salix didn't believe it worked at first, but almost managed to speak, and since I expended my mana to help another, they realised I am indeed a friend to Nelvari and granted me access to their city. For my bonus reward for this quest, I chose the combat XP because those monsters earlier scared me, but I also hit level 25 exploration, so I maxed the amount of gold I can get per day for the hearts that I have with any romanceable characters. I was excited to check out the new city, and started introducing myself to its residents and giving gifts to make a start on their friendship. It wasn't long before I met Gorwyn the Elder, and let him know of my business here. Apparently, I didn't even need to explain anything. They'd been expecting me because Elios had informed them. He had a welcome gift for me and I had to follow him to it. This is where I met Wesley, who was skeptical about my permission to be here. He's probably going to be a tough one to crack. My gift was a big one. I now have a second home and a second farm here in Nelvari. And look how cute this place is. My farmhouse is literally in a tree. I was given some seeds which I was tasked with planting, so I started clearing a space and my goodness, these rocks take some hitting. I got those acorns in the ground and watered them, then reported back to Gorwyn, who was apparently just stood staring at me. I impressed him though, and was allowed to settle into my new farm here for a bit. I should meet him at the top of the grand tree when I'm ready, though I should speak to Lily, who can give me a few more tips about the place. Lily gave me a bit of a tour and reiterated how fertile the soil is here, so much so that it would overwhelm the crops from Sunhaven with all the mana. I'll need to get seeds native to Nelvari, and she showed me this little alcove because if I grow an animal's favourite crop here, they might come and hang out. The last thing to note is the griffin who lives here. Apparently, it doesn't really acknowledge anyone, but I bet I can become friends with it. I tried a few different things that didn't really work to begin with, but then I remembered a language I would probably have in common with most animals. Food! I grabbed a berry from the nearby tree and quietly offered it. The griffin gently took it from me, and I guess we're friends now. For my reward, I picked out a few more acorn seeds, then spent the rest of the night tidying up the place. The inside of the house is far bigger than our Sunhaven one, so I decided to move the bed from the back corner down closer to the front to make passing out a bit less likely. Day 25 started with more Nelvari farm clearance, and in smashing those rocks I got level 17 mining, which was extra exciting because I used my skill point on the Vacumulus spell, which emits a shockwave damaging enemies and nearby rocks. This is going to make mining so much easier, but it is expensive in terms of mana at the moment, so I'm looking forward to upgrading it so that it costs less. Still so helpful though. Out at the entrance to my farm, there were several forageables on the ground. Then I thought it would be good to spend this afternoon getting to know this town and starting to do some quests to earn the local currency of mana orbs. The quest I accepted was for Torn, so I went to check out his shop. He sells capes and I really want one, so I'll have to come back again and get one at some point, if I remember. I also found a Snackoon by the entrance to the city, and it was asking for an energy smoothie and a cheesecake, neither of which I had. Does sound amazing though. I ran back into the forest real quick because I needed a small mana tome for Torn's quest, and there's almost always at least one lying around, and sure enough I found one. I made it back to Torn with the goods, who seemed grateful, and I was also grateful to get some extra orbs. Another way to get a small amount of orbs is by infusing your mana with these things dotted around town. It takes 10 mana for one orb, so it's not going to get you a huge amount unless you have a ton of mana to spend. I finished off this day by catching my first Nelvari fish, which was a robed parrotfish. Pretty cool looking. Day 26 was the day I was to head to the Grand Tree, but first I got distracted by the mount store. These are amazing, but again, I have next to no money here. I took my broke self up to that tree where I found Wesley, who was so pleased to see me. Apparently, Elder Gorwyn is at the top of the tree, and Wesley was getting increasingly rude to me. Slate mentioned that there was a lift to the top, but he was promptly shut down by Wesley because apparently I'm still an outsider. After Wesley stormed out, I had to ask for another way up. Apparently there is another route, but it's dangerous. This abandoned path is what used to be used before the wind lift was built, but is now in complete disrepair. No match for me though. In fact, the bouncy mushrooms are fun. I did almost throw myself off right at the end though. When I found Gorwyn, he was confused as to why I just used that entrance, so I explained what happened, and Wesley got a bit of a minor scolding for it. In your face, Wesley, I can use the lift. Grumble, grumble. Elder Gorwyn wanted to give me a gift to commemorate the first person being from Sunhaven to speak with Navara. It was a branch from the top of the Grand Tree so that I'll always have a piece of Nelvari with me before I meet the World Dragon. I wanted to go straight to Navara from there, but I was met with another tree guard who seemed to not be feeling well. They managed to utter the name Iris, so I found her pretty nearby. To be able to heal Will, I'll need to go to the forest and cut down some soul sap trees, as their sap will have properties that can help to heal. I made haste to the forest and cut down any sparkly gold trees which dropped that sap, and once I collected 6 of the stuff, I ran straight back to Iris who enchanted the sap for me. I smothered it all over the tree, which was kinda weird, but Wilt reawoken after feeling big tired for a week. Oh Wilt, I know how you feel. I was allowed to pass and found loads of stuff to forage. After satisfying my inner loot goblin, I approached Navara and oh my god, she looks awesome and so beautiful. Like Elios, she had some questions about my innermost self. I told her I was here to see the city of Nelvari, and the reason is because I wanted to help make the world a better place. Navara saw my potential, and she had a lesson for me, though I'm not sure about the nickname Little Sprout. Anyway, I collected my rewards for our chat, and spoke to her again, ready for my first lesson. Navara wanted me to chat with a couple of the residents of Nelvari to gain their perspectives. Simple enough. First, to Iris, who explained to me that she feels Nelvari is at its best when hidden for protection. Those conduits you can infuse are part of the protection spell, so I was asked to try them out. I went round and infused 4 of them with 10 mana each for the task. Iris thanked me for my help, since Nelvari was once threatened, so it was important to her that it stays hidden. Next, I tracked down Van to get his perspective. He had a test for me, an object hidden outside Nelvari. I stepped out into the forest to find a great city poster right next to the entrance. Sure, hidden, but this was basically just to show that the outside had something to offer to Nelvari. My final step of this lesson was to speak with Elder Gorwyn for a special task. He knows there are many different views here of whether or not the elven city should stay hidden, but he values all these views equally, and it seems Van did prank me, but the task will be to give Nelvara Gorwyn's greetings, so off I went to report on my lesson. After gaining these perspectives, I was asked what I think. Should Nelvari stay hidden or should it open itself up? I said they should open themselves up. Whilst it does come with some risks, it also comes with opportunities, but most importantly, I passed that lesson. Before leaving for the night, I asked about my second lesson. Navara was aware of a certain someone who hasn't exactly been welcoming to me, so she asked me to try and find some commonality with him. Of course, we're talking about Wesley, so we'll try our best. On day 27, I found Wesley by the bar in the Grand Tree to find this commonality, but he was having none of it. I popped out to Elder Gorwyn to get some advice, and I asked why he was picked to become a future elder one day. Gorwyn sees that Wesley cares very much for the traditions of Nelvari, but apparently his fears might have turned him sour. However, even though it seems like he doesn't like me, he did spend days and nights prepping my new farm in the lead up to my arrival. He said that perhaps I can find something to show my goodwill to Nelvari. That might gain his interest. My task will be to donate 1,000 mana orbs to the town donation box. We have some grinding to do. For now though, I just took the griffin to Sunhaven Farm because I hadn't checked on it in a few days. A random amount of crops were ready due to a lack of watering, but I immediately hit level 26 farming, and with that I unlocked propagation, giving me a small chance to harvest extra crops, and for this day I just looked after my Sunhaven farm. On day 28 I returned a bag of catnip to Kitty that I found in the forest on my way to Nilvari. For my bonus rewards I picked the angelfish to use as either extra gold or a bit of mana restoration. I used some community tokens to buy a diamond which I gave to Judith outside the library for her new centerpiece. Solon had another job for me. Looks like he needs some meat. I guess I can go find some for him? Not sure why the tavern was my first call because obviously they only sell cooked meat. What was I thinking? I tried the bakery next because I remembered them selling ingredients, but no meat here, so I went to the general store where I found success. Here you go, Solon. Hope you make something delicious. I picked up some fruit on my way to the beach where I found a turtle in need, and after I flipped it, it thanked me by pooping out a diamond. I cleaned up some of the beach again because it got so messy, and also found Peter's lost fishing lure. It wasn't even that far away, which meant it was easy to return. I cleaned up more on my farm whilst waiting for 7 PM to roll around, then I headed into town and spoke to Lucia to start the Lantern Festival. I love this way of doing festivals because it means a whole part of the map doesn't get closed off for festival prep, especially if you didn't want to go to it. I checked out what Bernard was selling and picked up a paper lantern to take home with me. There were also various food items for sale, but I didn't buy any, as well as those of plushies, which I didn't buy any of either. I then found this mysterious guy in the corner who travels around different lantern festivals. He was selling a special companion, a dragon who can help take care of crops when placed on the farm by watering a few for you. This was an offer I could not resist. It was then time for the main event, where I was asked to make the first wish as my efforts within the community had been recognised. Of course, my hands acted before my brain, so I let go of the lantern before I could make a wish. Really feels like the times where you put the yogurt pot in the sink and the spoon in the trash, but I really enjoyed the view when everyone else let their lanterns go. Oh look, a dragon! What's also amazing is that you get XP and rewards just for going. For my gift lantern, I picked the rooster. On day 29, I came back to the Nilvari farm and harvested my crops. I reached level 27 farming and increased my propagation rank. I put most of them in the shipping bin, but saved one of them for the museum, then ran straight to the nearest conduit to squeeze out a few more mana orbs. It was then back to Sunhaven to handle a couple of little quests, including one for Topi's bridge where he rewarded me with another 3 cookies I needed for June's quest. I made a couple of donations to the museum before collecting a couple of fire crystals that I made in my furnace. I retrieved one more plate of cookies from my chest, and now I could finally hand in that quest for June, though I was a bit worried that some might be a bit stale, and this time I took the extra gold. That went towards buying some summer seeds for my farm because we have loads to grow for the museum. I decided to move my crop field over to give myself more space. I should have probably started doing this earlier in the day because I didn't quite manage to water everything before I had to run to bed. On day 30, I cleared out the remainder of the crops from the original field. Some of the crops on my new field were on fire. This is one of the seasonal threats. You can turn these off, but I don't mind the suffering. Thankfully, it just means they need a bit of extra water and it doesn't actually kill them. I found a new snakoon blocking my beach bridge. They were asking for mangoes and pineapples, a creature of good taste. I had to water my crops over at the Nilvari farm and was horrified to find some of those on fire too. And I should have brought a scarecrow because there were definitely some critters munching on them. I did a couple of town board quests whilst I was over there for the extra mana orbs, then did a bit of window shopping before finding this area in Nilvari I hadn't actually been to yet. All those stairs led to the Nilvari mines, but to access them I'll need to bring in keys because only key people are allowed in. But apparently each day a different theme of mines opens, which is pretty cool. Completely irrelevant to all that, I found this tiny little frog. I wanted to become its friend, but it literally just croaked. Not quite sure what I was expecting. I ran a couple more errands that evening because I needed every mana orb I could get. And speaking of, another way to get some is to chop down trees, which is what I did for the rest of the night. I started day 31 with some fishing on my Nilvari farm, though I caught this nasty eaten apple amongst some actual fish, and even caught some new ones. A lot of this day was spent on bulletin board requests and working on combat in the forest, where I made it to level 9, meaning I could increase my health regen. On day 32, I had a few new crops ready. These mushrooms are so weird. They drop a crop and literally walk off, like what? My progress to 1000 orbs was going slowly, but at least it was going. With all the fires, I had to make sure to visit each farm every day. As I came into town, I found Pod needing help with collecting shells for a necklace for his mother, which I agreed to help with. It's an easy enough task, so I handled it immediately and handed over the shells in the library. Catherine paid me generously to bring her a few bags of flour, then I bought more mango and pineapple seeds to plant for that snakoon. I axed my evening away, partly to clean up the farm, but also for more orbs. On day 33, I donated several bits to the museum, including some flowers, that book from the mines, some summer crops, and a couple of fish. Anything I didn't need to donate I could sell, but I did have to take a second trip back to donate the Nelvari crops I forgot earlier. Speaking of, the Nelvari farm was my next stop because more flowers were ready to pick, and with my level 29 farming, I gave the seed maker a chance to drop more seeds. Not that I'd actually used it yet. I caught a single fish, then realised this isn't very profitable in Nelvari, so I went back to chopping trees instead. On day 34, I collected a wooden table and an alchemy table that I'd crafted overnight. I put the alchemy table in a random corner of the farm so I could check out all the recipes, and some of them had ingredients I'd literally never seen before, so I left it for now. After tending to my crops, I checked out this broken looking doghouse which only needed 25 wood planks to repair. This triggered a cutscene with Toby and Pod who were arguing about who could fix it better. I wasn't really listening to what they were saying, so I just gave the materials to Pod. I came back to plant my weekly roses, and I wanted to plant some cinnaberries Catherine asked me to test her fertilizer with, but those are only spring crops, so she'll have to wait a while. A long while. I crafted myself a wardrobe to store my extra gear, then handled a couple of requests for the townies. I'll take some freshly baked bread. From there, I headed to the museum to donate the amaranth as well as a griffin egg I found somewhere. This meant I had some new rewards from Covington to collect. My attack damage had been increased, and I picked up some extra gold. I watered a few remaining roses on my way through the farm, not quite sure what distracted me earlier, but I needed to get to Nelvari to harvest the last lonely crop and work on some villager requests there because I was still in need of 150 mana orbs. By the evening, I only had 72 to go, so I spent the rest of the night chopping wood, bringing my total up to 953. So close. Bright and early on day 35, I asked my griffin to fly me back to Sunhaven because I had a wardrobe to fit into this perfectly sized gap into my house. I didn't have a huge amount to put in here yet, but it's nice not to have to worry about the chest space to store this kind of stuff. In sorting out the mess that was my crop field, I hit level 30 farming, and the skill I picked for this one was to increase the speed of my crafting tables. I went foraging in the West Forest before returning the catnip Kitty lost yet again. Something tells me this won't be the last time either. I got a cutscene with Catherine in town, who asked me to grow her 25 carrots for a carrot cake she wanted to make for a family reunion. I like me a bit of farming, so I couldn't turn down this request. I picked up all the seeds I needed from the general store and ran straight home to plant them in the empty gaps. My evening was spent in Nelvari, where I infused my mana with the conduit so that I only needed 9 more orbs. With one more quest there, I had all the orbs I needed, so I sprinted to that donation box and spammed that donate button till there were 1,000 inside. Obviously, it wasn't long before Wesley came to interrogate me. In his own particular way, he did thank me for the donation, but apparently this gratitude was just messing around. I asked him what he was so busy with, and apparently he was trying to restore a poem in the original Nelvari language, and he said there was no way I would know anything about that. Yeah, I'll be right back, but first, we sleep. On day 36, the game said an angry monster left the farm. What monster? Was it a ghost? I'm so confused. Anyways, I harvested my crop and fought the daily fires, then paid a visit to Amanda in the library to ask for that Nelvarian book again. I wanted to give it back to Nelvari. It did technically belong to them after all. Amanda wasn't willing to part with it, but she was willing to allow me to make a copy. She wasn't about to let me use her writing quills though, so I was sent away to get some charcoal to write with. I was close to the museum, so I stopped in there first to donate any new crops that I harvested this morning. Then I noticed that Bernard had a quest over at the town hall. Some of the banners around town needed refreshing, so he asked me to bring him some fabric. A simple enough task, no problem for me. I immediately forgot about all that crafting though, and headed into the West Forest to slay some leafies for Ronald and Murray's bet. Luckily, I already had all the fabric in a chest, so I could hand that one in pretty easily, along with some sand dollars for Lucia. Then it was over to the tavern to settle Ronald and Murray's bet. Murray believed I could do it. One of the rewards from today's questing was some street lamps. I placed those on my farm when I got home because it was really quite dark at night, though I'm probably going to need some more of these in the future because I do quite like how these look. On day 37, I reached level 31 farming, and in my most exciting skill unlock yet, I gained the Rain Cloud spell. I wasted no time in testing that out, and it's really expensive in terms of mana at the moment, but like the others, we can upgrade the skill later to make it cheaper, and this was going to make my life so much easier. We don't get farming XP for watering this way though. I got some paths crafting so I could get the farm looking a bit nicer. Then I planned to spend the day in the mines, but I found this very rude Snookoon in my way. All it really wanted was 4 iron bars. So instead of going all the way home, I checked Solon's shop to see if he sells them, and he does. They're not too expensive either. On feeding the floof, it dropped to minus Nakoon plushie. Then I made my way in to get a few more floors unlocked. I had enough keys to get to the first treasure floor, and thankfully, you don't need a key for these chests, which had some money, ores, and fabric. I mined the remainder of the day away, working backwards through the floors to pick up any ores and break all the urns. And I thought I had just enough time when I got home to start placing some of my paths, except I did forget about that thing called sleep and passed out in front of my house. What's weird though is that I didn't wake up in a hospital bed the next morning. I was right by the doctor's desk in a cutscene. Should I be concerned? Oh, it was because I completed a quest. Alright, I'll take a speed potion, I guess. I came back home to send some rain for my crops before carrying on with the pathing, except I did end up running out. I'd crafted the charcoal overnight, so I brought it to Amanda so I could write down a copy of the poem. I missed out the melons for the museum, so I bought a few seeds to grow on the farm, though I don't know why I didn't plant them in the pre-watered spots. With a few more tiles made, I could connect the paths. Then I decided to take some time to turn this old field back into grass. But it was a bit tedious, so I just did enough for the space I wanted for paths, even if I did just run out again. I donated the final flower for the flower bundle, which got me a reward of a few bouquets and their recipes. After the sun had set, I was back in the mines again to unlock the next section and grab that iron ore. I didn't find much though, so I came home and got back to pathing. I spent day 39 in Nelvari, coming armed with that poem for Wesley, who was shocked and confused. And of course, I wasn't really met with gratitude, just another interrogation. So I explained myself, only for him to try and find another flaw within me. I proved him wrong. I know what that poem means, so I recited it to him. He asked me why I came to Nelvari, and I told him I was here to learn Navarra's lessons. It was at that moment we realised we had something in common, the desire to seek wisdom. He let me know of his worries about the ancient poem being forgotten, and now that he finally seemed satisfied with my responses, I actually got a thank you. I wonder if he'll be less cold towards me now. That being said, I'm not going to go out on my way to be friends with him. I gave Navarra the good news right away, and it sounds like this was just as much of a lesson for Wesley as it was for me. She wanted to make sure that no matter how great the foe, finding commonality even with them might be for the best. I collected my reward for the lesson, opting for farming XP as the bonus. Then it was time for my final lesson. My last task was to grow a mana gem. It seemed easy enough. I shoved the seed in the ground, gave it a water and infused it. I just had to come back tomorrow to check on it. In the meantime, I completed more bulletin board requests for orbs and XP, then bought a few different varieties of seeds with the museum in mind. I had some seeds as rewards too, so I got these planted with the rest. Then for some reason I made a whole load of elven planks, just in case I need them I suppose. For this rainy evening, I fished in the Elven City, a dreary activity for the dreary weather. Navarra spoke to me from my bed the next morning. The seed had sprouted but needed one final infusion of mana. I wanted to water all of my crops first, but wasted loads of mana sending a cloud in the wrong direction. Looks like it goes wherever your curse is pointing, not just the direction you're facing. I trekked up to the top of the city to see the mana gem where Iris and Van were also waiting for me. The infusion from one person alone was not enough. We needed to team up and combine our power. We all tried our best and the crop did grow a little, but it wasn't quite enough. Just in the nick of time, Wesley showed up. I thought he was going to interrogate me again, but no, he actually wanted to help. In fact, he said it would be an honor? Okay, let's do this. One last infusion and the crop was fully grown. We successfully grew a rock. I even got another thank you from Wesley since the growth of these crystals is important for Nelvari's culture. With all of that, I'd now been granted Navarra's blessing. I closed my eyes, and she said there was in fact a strange energy about me, just like Helios said, but I was grateful to receive the boost of 10 max mana, and picked out some wind chime seeds. It was then back to the farm to plant those seeds, even though I missed my earthquake spell by a tile. I was too lazy to correct it, and I'm bracing myself for you all to scream at me in the comments because it doesn't line up. Just kidding, I needed the extra space for a few more seeds. I ended up spending a bit more time fishing on the Nelvari farm whilst waiting for mana regen, before returning to my Sunhaven farm late that afternoon to find my crops were in major need of help. I did also want to donate a few things to the museum, but I missed the opening time by mere seconds. On day 41, all of Catherine's carrots were ready. I planted my weekly free rose seeds, then made haste to hand over all those carrots to Catherine, who was happy with my produce. Thing is, I only got XP and community tokens, so she didn't even pay me back for the seeds. For the extra skill, I maxed the Rain Cloud spell, which means it only costs 40 mana. Still a lot at this point, but less than the 60 we started with. I made that drop off at the museum before searching the farming store for the only summer crop I wasn't growing, the guava berry, which, despite it being a summer crop, wasn't being sold. This'll end up being quite the roadblock for the museum. I popped to Nelvari to tend to my crops there real quick, then decided I slowly wanted to start upgrading my armor to iron, but I did want to prioritize the keys first. For the rest of the day, I pretty much just chopped wood and got around to turning the old field back into grass. On day 42, I sorted out both of my farms, then spent the whole morning questing in Nelvari because this really is my favourite place. I would have been there all day, but today's the music festival, so I spoke to Bernard in town to get the party started. I like the fact that festivals seem to vary in location. I checked out Ronald's store, which was selling a fun variety of themed foods, and I could also buy musical instruments and posters from Emmett. I spoke to Giuseppe, who was putting the finishing touches on the stage, and told him we're ready for the show. The first performer was Kitty and her troupe of dancers for a K-pop show. I cheered her on a few times, then went on my way because nothing really happened. Our next act was Claude. I cheered him on just once. I think he was too into his music to really notice, so I left because classical music isn't really my thing anyway. I spoke to Bernard when Claude finished to tell him I was ready to leave. As fun as it is to see friends performing live, loud music is very overstimulating. And let's be honest, loop earplugs aren't a thing in this world, so I need the peace of my farm. Not silence though. For me, that's also as bad as someone screaming. Gotta love sensory issues. On day 43, I was forced to look at my beach where Pete was asleep on his boat. Pete, what are you doing on my property? And there's that big squid thing. It's called Herman, it has a beak. It squawked and it threw ink all over my farm. Pete, how did that squawk not awaken you? Hello? Yes, Pete, you missed him. I started clearing up the gross mess that was left behind. Then Pete asked me what the heck was going on. That important fish he's after pretty much ruined my farm, but apparently he's Pete's mortal enemy. It seems he took off with Pete's lucky hook and sort of challenged me a bit to help him remove the squid from the ocean. The game said I'd need my best fishing pole, so I ran off out of there because it seemed like a job for someone who was way more skilled than I was at that point. It was back to the mines instead to unlock a few more floors and gather even more iron, and it was really nice to make my Vicumula spell cheaper to use. By the end of the day, I gathered 28 iron ore, which I began smelting before bed. On day 44, that stupid squid bird messed up my farm again. I was really counting on him doing a weedle and leaving of his own accord after a few days. I harvested my crops and started cleaning some of the ink, and for my farming skill up, I sped up crafting tables again. With some of that freshly smelted iron, I made some new armor, then I handled the day's chores at the Nelvari farm. Today was the day for venturing to the north. The first thing I came across was this sandstone quarry where the workers seemed troubled by the darkness, but then they thought I was a kid. How dare! I know I'm short, but like, come on, I'm small and mighty. I ignored that for now and continued north, but then my path was blocked by a snakoon. A pretty cool looking one too. I had a look at what the hungry roadblock was after, and it was literally just some wheat and potatoes. I had all of the wheat, but I was 3 potatoes short, so I chopped up on seeds from the general store and got them in the ground. Now we wait, and whilst doing some of that waiting, I chopped down some trees. Day 45 started with more ink cleanup. This is so gross, I hate this so much. I returned a lost toy to my name twin before using an iron key to open this chest just outside the quarry. It dropped a small mana tome, some speed potions, and this explorer's blessing ring. You do get a bit more movement speed and max mana, but I wasn't willing to sacrifice the 2 defense, so I won't be wearing it. I had one more key, and I let the inner loot goblin get the better of me, so instead of unlocking another mines floor, I opened this chest which had a few potato seeds and a stone ring, which had a good bit of starter defense. Even without the extra floors to unlock, it would have been rude not to spend the evening in the mines since I was here and all, and I was definitely in need of more ores. On day 46, I chopped some more wood to smelt into coal as I was low on the stuff. Our inky enemy made me forget about the Nelvari farm for a couple of days, so half of my crops were on fire over there. Or at least I thought that was the case, but actually it was some fire fruit ready for harvest. A little confusing in the peak of summer. I suddenly remembered about this store near the quarry selling some useful items, and I came and bought the entire stock of this item on multiple occasions. You see, I thought this was coal, and I was like, wow, in this game it's so cheap. But no, it's just stone. I popped up to the museum from there to donate a few Nelvari crops, only 2 more to go, but annoyingly the rest of the day was spent AFK, having forgotten to pause. On day 47, that slimy nuisance had vacated the premises finally. I made a few more keys to unlock some more mines floors, taking me up to floor 18. Then I used my now usual method of working backwards through the floors to gather as many ores as possible. I came home with my best mining haul yet. Look at all those ores and gems. More Nelvari crops were ready on day 48. With space in my field, I bought a few mana gem seeds because I still hadn't grown this for the museum. I was pretty much broke again, so I did a couple of quests for more orbs before returning to the farm to get those seeds planted. I shipped off a few of the day's crops, then it was back to Sunhaven to get more iron keys crafted for mines and chests. On day 49, my potatoes were ready. I stashed some in the house for potential future cooking purposes, then sped off north to feed the fuzzy roadblock. With a full belly, it dropped its plushie, which is so adorable, look at it! The guard seemed impressed at the beast and ran off to tell the captain, so I carried on with my journey, hopping across this field of bouncy mushrooms. The darkness was growing stronger, and there was much to forage. There were quite a few enemies, but I was eventually met with this weird magical situation. Apparently the only thing I could think to do was to get Rosa to escort me to ask Elios for help. Yup, I had to run all the way back. Apparently, Claude might know something about this because he was originally from there after all. But first, I had to get advice from Lucia because Claude isn't exactly the easiest to approach. Because June's a counsellor, Lucia sent me to him to ask the best way, and luckily he too was in the library. I interrupted his class because this was definitely an emergency. He suggested I perhaps try Gift, and that he's seen Claude at Liam's bakery, so maybe Liam might know his tastes. I tracked down Liam at once, and apparently Claude's favourite is tomato bread, which, each to their own I guess. His tomato plants were almost ready, but they needed one last water, so Liam asked for my help. I met Liam at the bakery and we watered the plants together. Liam shared that he was happy to help with this because he was worried about the potential of anyone getting hurt, so let's hope this tomato bread can save the town. Tomatoes in hand, I came back to the house to make the tomato juice for Liam, but this was going to take some time, so I snacked on a whole bunch of strawberries and cleaned up the patches of mist squid ink. On day 50, I placed another set of paths, and what I love about Sunhaven is that you can place them under these large rocks so it won't look weird till I upgrade my pickaxe. I do wish I could place them closer to the exits though. I brought the tomato juice to Liam, who assured me the bread would be finished tomorrow, so I flew the griffin to Nelvari to tend to my remaining crops and make this a questing day. But I did also get myself a few more seeds to plant. I got back to Sunhaven that evening and found a little bear called Scuzzy hanging out by the entrance to my farm. Scuzzy was selling a variety of transform potions which I hadn't tried out yet, but he was also selling a variety of very pricey watering cans, which was kinda random actually. But I did end up buying the iron one since that wasn't gonna bankrupt me. I also picked up the rainbow potion because I was honestly intrigued. Like, do I literally turn into a rainbow or... oh. Okay then. Apparently I lick paths now. What's even weirder is that people don't recognize you when you're transformed, and I definitely saw potions that can turn you into other NPCs. Not potentially problematic at all. I turned back into a human to hang out in the mines for the evening as I'd made more keys. I managed to reach the next treasure floor, but an ore muncher was blocking the path. Think Snackoon, but Mines Edition. I'll have to come back with its feast. Even though it got late, I obviously wasn't going to leave without collecting the loot, and oh my god, 1,000 gold. Nice. Thankfully, I still just about made it to bed in the nick of time. On day 51, I visited Liam bright and early to collect that fresh bread which I took straight up to Claude's mansion. A sort of grumpy looking Claude came out to greet me, and he was shocked to see me handing him his favourite bread. Of course, I told him several other townies helped out, and when he realised I wasn't going to give up trying to help Sunhaven, he agreed to meet me in his backyard. He finally admitted personally that he was from Withergate and already knew about the fog barrier. Before anything, Claude asked me to keep his secret because he was worried about being shunned due to his origins, so I agreed. I do really need his help. He didn't think any mage was able to take on the barrier. Instead, we'd need a witch. Little did he know, the town has a Catherine. I told her of our predicament and she asked me to give her a couple of days to do some research. This gave me time to do even more mining, meaning I got to finish the Ore Muncher's feast, but sadly these don't drop you a plushie. On day 52, I got some milk and cookies from Liam in the mail, which was pretty adorable, and also some green root seeds from Catherine. I still had one more day to wait for her research, so I used the day to sort out and expand my cramped storage situation. I dropped into the museum to see if I had any new rewards, then bought a pet leash from the store because I wanted a little friend to follow me around. I did have a quick look at the pets here, but nothing took my fancy today. I picked Pebbles as my follow pet because the dragon is there to help my plants stay watered. I made an adamant sword to help boost my attack a little, but clearly I didn't notice at first that I wasn't the right level to be able to use it. I ended my day clearing more of my neglected Nelvari farm. On day 53, I took a quick look through the elven loom I just made, but just crafted some fabric for now. Once I sorted out the Nelvari farm, I bought myself an adamant pickaxe because I needed my bars to make into keys. Then I met Catherine at that same picnic bench to hear about her findings. We're apparently going to be needing moonlight water, which funnily enough is in Claude's backyard. Before dealing with that, I found out it was actually Catherine's birthday today, so I gifted her a blueberry, which I think she seemed to appreciate. Next up, Claude's backyard. Hopefully he doesn't mind the trespassing. Actually, maybe he does. Or does he? I don't know, this guy's really hard to read. But when he started doubting Catherine's abilities as a witch, I decided I really don't like this guy. I headed straight to the fog barrier to meet Catherine again and watched her remove that barrier successfully. There was still a bunch of fog to navigate though, and what it really is an invisible maze. It did take me a little while, but I reached the end eventually to meet Sharon, this weird three-headed dog thing. He kindly took me along in his boat, but the water was blocked by this snake rock. I got off to find out what the holdup was and spoke to these two guards here. It seemed that the king's pet heat viper had escaped, and they were having trouble capturing it. Each of the guards had a plan, so I took time to listen to them. Linus had built this catapult, and they both wanted to sling something heavy at the beast. Linus's idea involved 50 sandstone fish, which before even hearing Rastus's plan is an absolute nope from me. I would much rather mine the 250 sandstone ore instead, as tedious as that sounds. I was grateful to see Sharon could actually take me all the way back to the farm, and even better, he'll be waiting here to take me back to where we came from. I ran straight up to the sandstone quarry to make a start on this huge task, but looking at my damage on these rocks, this is really gonna take a while. This continued into day 54, with a bit of a foraging break because I kept running out of mana. I managed to gather the final pieces that night. On day 55, I set up a new honey area to be surrounded with a batch of blue roses. I asked Sharon to take me back to the Heat Viper where I handed over the 250 sandstone ore, and that was more than enough to knock out the giant snake. The two guards were very much celebrating their victory, but I was sure to remind them who painstakingly grinded for all that ore. It was all worth it though, because look at all that combat XP which I chose to double up on. This got me to level 17. My skill unlock here was increasing my armor. We boated on past the sleeping snake, and we talked about my goal to stop the darkness. Apparently, the only way to stop the darkness was to stop the dragon. He seemed to have an appreciation for offerings if I didn't want to fight him, and fighting him might not be advisable due to his considerable power. I made sure to say hi from Claude as promised and thanked him for the ride. I then popped my head out of the sewers ready for the big city, except I was stopped by these wither guards. Cordelia approached and was going to take me to the prince, whose name was Darius. I politely introduced myself, but I was immediately silenced. As soon as I said I was from Sunhaven, they all got into an argument over why that fog barrier spell had failed. I was on a mission though, so I told them I need to speak with Dinas, and let's say this place is not the most hospitable. I'll have to get permission from King Minos first, but he only speaks with citizens. Becoming one would be reasonably simple though. All I needed to do is get a home here, and there are some vacant apartments. Perfect. It is going to be costly though. Problem was, I was being banished back to the sewers. Now what do? I sought advice from Sharon, who told me to try the other path just above us. I just have to be careful about all the enemies on the way. I semi-successfully hopped my way to the end eventually, and this is where I met Donovan. Donovan was kind enough to help me with my cause. I guess because he's bored? He stepped away for a second to get me a disguise, which was literally just a paper bag. I don't know how I'm not going to get caught like this, but somehow I trust this guy. The next townie we met was Slobert, who was kinda gross really, and was immediately suspicious. I just stood by without saying a word. Apparently my name is Swamp Feet now. Lovely. But then he put me on the spot, so I had to play along. I'm not very good at this. Thankfully, Slobert believed us, a massive relief. We ventured onward to the apartment block, and with perfect timing, we witnessed someone get kicked out of the place. Sounds like a new home is ready for me. Somehow, this dude managed to convince Flemmett to give me a loan for the tickets to the apartment in exchange for some special plushie. Whilst Flemmett went to set up the apartment, Donovan did admit he doesn't actually have the plushie, so he had to go hide. But as expected, Flemmett forgot about this pretty quickly and showed me to my third home. I won't be considered a citizen though until I pay off the entire loan. This being one of the cheaper units meant it was only worth 3,000 tickets, or is it 2,000? I don't know if this was a confusion tactic or a mistake, but the next stop was my rooftop farm. Oh my, what a mess. Once Flemmett left, I confirmed that the loan amount was in fact 3,000, so I needed to get to work immediately to clear the farm so we can raise that kind of money. Just like the other places, you can only grow local crops here, but it took me the entire afternoon just to clear this little area. This new place didn't feel like home yet, so I went back to Sunhaven to sleep. On day 56, I shopped at the farming store for next season's scarecrows since fall was to start tomorrow. I chatted with some friends before seeing if I could afford anything useful with the summer tokens I've accumulated, but nothing really took my fancy this year. Maybe future years when we have more of them. I checked on the Nilvari farm that I'd been ignoring for the past few days and donated a few more books to the museum. Then it was time for the annual beach barbecue. I grabbed myself a free snow cone and checked out what Emmett was selling. I didn't buy anything though because I was saving all of my gold for fall seeds. The main event was the hot dog eating contest, and I was so ready. We had 25 seconds to eat as many hot dogs as possible, and even though it took me a minute to figure out how to get going, it was truly just a case of button mashing my way to victory, and I meant victory. There was some seriously impressive numbers being thrown around, and they almost forgot about me. But I managed a whopping 104 hot dogs, becoming the hot dog hero, and you bet I was going to show it. This absolutely became my favourite hat. Everyone gathered on the pier at the end of the day for the fireworks show, which was a perfect way to end the season. Everything became orange for fall on day 57. I wanted to prioritise that Withergate loan though, so I headed straight to the rooftop farm, which has suddenly got covered in weeds. It was good to see that these occasionally drop seeds though. Just like in Nilvari, Withergate has a bulletin board with quests to earn money, XP, and even seeds, so I will very much be taking advantage of this. In exploring the city, I found the seed shop and bought all the discount ones I could afford because I had next to no tickets, but I did save a few to get a wider variety from Christine so I could donate these to the museum. I got these planted on the roof with help from the rain. I made it back to Sunhaven with plenty of time to look at this season's crops, and as usual I bought some of each with the museum in mind. Problem was, I kinda ran out of backpack space, so loads of items were left on the floor. I cleared out some junk, then came home to plant everything, then checked on the Nilvari farm to see the crops were covered in vines. That's this season's threat. Annoying, but less scary than fire. I relaxed for the evening by chopping down some trees and foraging on my beach. On day 58, I returned yet another bag of catnip to Kitty. Then I came back to the farm to collect another small fishing net I remembered I'd crafted. Now we can collect double the fish. My first mana gem was ready in Nilvari amongst some other crops, and the level 35 skill I went with grants extra movement speed and exploration XP whilst you have a pet on a leash. I donated my final Nilvari crop to the museum and got a couple of new crop pets. I set the walk choy free to roam on the farm, and the shiwalkie mushroom went in the shipping bin because I hate mushrooms. I ended up bringing the walk choy as my leash pet over to Withergate to tend to that set of crops. 3 farms is a lot to manage, but I gotta get those tickets somehow, which, speaking of, I spent the rest of this day questing in the city. On day 59, I spent some time clearing up the Withergate farm. That evening, I bumped into Lucia in the East Forest. She's been trying to find some treasure on an old map, but didn't really have the time for it. I was more than happy to take it off her hands. I bet I'll have no trouble sniffing out this loot. I gave it a go, but the enemies on the path to Dragonsmeet are really strong. No wonder I've been needing Rosa to escort me. But I got to the chest very late at night, which had quite the variety of stuff. The other chest across the bridge needed a Suneye key to open, an ore I hadn't even seen yet. Due to my loot goblin antics, I ended up passing out partway home, so I woke up in the hospital on day 60. I felt like doing some town board quests this morning, not forgetting about my farm of course, and I also planted that blueberry sapling from yesterday, planning to use this area as an orchard eventually. Next on my list was Withergate, where I was delighted to see my first crops ready. I'll be keeping one of each to donate to the museum, but I sold the rest so I can have more tickets for more seeds tomorrow. I still wasn't finished with the farm clearance here, so I carried on with that, but I did eventually get distracted by fishing in this pool thing. I rounded off this day by exploring the carnival, which wasn't even finished back when I did my first Let's Play. You can buy a variety of things here, but one of the best parts was free cotton candy and popcorn. The popcorn gives you a bit more movement speed permanently. There's even an arcade here where you can earn other tickets for prizes. On day 61, I got straight to the Withergate town board quests and bought the day's discount seeds with yesterday's earnings. The crops that were ready nicely made room for the ones I had to plant, but today I did remember to add a scarecrow because we really can't lose a single plant here. These rocks were really in the way, so I spent hours in-game getting rid of them all with my spell and my pickaxe, but my axe wasn't strong enough for these tree trunks yet. I needed to get out of the darkness, so I did my Sunhaven farm chores on my way to the museum to make a few drop-offs. Then I hung out in town for the day doing quests for people here. I set off a couple of new tools to craft before placing a construction table because I wanted to work towards expanding my tiny house. After planting the week's roses on day 62, I wanted to carry on the long task of tidying up this farm, but accidentally wasted mana tilling a huge square that I wasn't supposed to. I painstakingly untilled each tile, then I went and did it again later on. I left that for now and checked the town board. I noticed that I could already hand in this quest for Liam, but what I didn't realise is that I actually handed over the iron axe I'd only just made for myself. I bought a barn from Bernard over at the town hall and placed it just below the pond on my farm. It's worth knowing that if you want to move these, you'll need a demolition kit and it will lose all its contents and upgrades. I then got another axe crafting since I just gave mine away. Inside the barn, I placed a collector, which is this game's equivalent of an auto grabber. You can also get these from Bernard, along with this auto feeder here. On day 63, I collected my shiny new axe and finally got rid of these massive rocks obstructing my path on my way to Kitty's shop to buy some cows and chickens. Before setting the animals free in their new home, I crafted and placed some fences. I let my new friends settle into their home, and my goodness aren't they cute. Then it was back to farm clearance because I would like to get some more paths down around the place. I got to sorting out the Withergate farm that afternoon, collected the next round of free food, and spent every ticket on more seeds to plant. This cycle with the Withergate crops is how I'm going to do things until I have enough money to pay off my apartment loan. When I got back to Sunhaven that evening, I decided that this tilled area was annoying enough for me to fix. I really wish there was an easier way, and I did have stuff to drop off at the museum, but I forgot they close at 8. On day 64, I found my first animal products ready to collect, but I'm going to leave them in here until I need them for something. I munched on a golden pomegranate, which boosted my stats in gold, then it was over to the museum to make a few donations, and I was really happy with the progress being made here. I picked stuff up at the beach because it had really gotten out of hand here, but this also gave me quite a few extra goodies to sell. I enjoyed a day of laid-back questing and chatting to villagers. Then I remembered I'd not been to Withergate yet today, so I made haste to tend to this other farm. I actually slept in the Withergate apartment that night so I could work on the farm first thing the next morning, but I left the darkness as soon as I could to handle the crops back at home. I had several more Withergate crops to donate to the museum, then made this day a mind state to top up on s'mores. On day 66, I started crafting an adamant axe because the iron one still wasn't strong enough for what I wanted. I picked my last few crops in Nelvari, and I'll probably leave this bare for now because having 3 farms to manage was getting a bit much, and I really wanted to prioritise spending time in Withergate because these tickets were proving to be a pain to obtain. For one of my quests today, I had the choice to pick out a pirate's hat, and as you can probably guess, I picked the pink one, even over the extra XP. I tried it on, but ended up just sticking with the hot dog hat for now. I helped myself to more free carnival snacks and gave this wheel a spin, winning 20 tickets. A net loss of 10, as this costed me 30. I reminded myself that I was here to earn tickets, not lose them, so I took myself off to the farm to grow more crops. Except I kind of forgot to buy any seeds, so I went and did that, then it was back to planting. This crop area was gradually growing in size. Oh, and I ended up selling that pirate's hat. I really should have just gone with the XP. My evening was for questing again, which is also good for working on friendships. I just got like half a heart with this night. With my adamant axe now ready back at home, I could finally start chopping down these giant tree trunks which happened to drop hardwood. On day 67, I had loads of Withergate crops ready to swipe. Tonight was going to give me my first decently sized ticket profit, but I did make sure to keep one of each new crop for the museum. I bought the day's discount seeds to replant in the gaps. But not gonna lie, I'm pretty sure I forgot at this point that I could buy extra seeds directly from Christine since I still had tickets to reinvest. It took me some time to find this place, but I wanted to check out the Withergate mines today, which you access via this subway. You can mine for candy corn here to buy specialist equipment, and to get into the actual mines, you need to buy subway tickets with Withergate tickets. And the more expensive the ticket, supposedly the bigger and better the mining floor. So of course I bought a kingly ticket. I guess it was a good thing after all that I didn't spend every last ticket on seeds. Withergate ticket, not subway ticket, obviously. I travelled to the Kingly mines to find loads of pumpkin-shaped rocks and various new ores, but these rocks are considerably tougher than the Sunhaven mines, so we're gonna be here a while. I actually spent the entire afternoon and evening here, and even then I couldn't clear out all of the valuables. Back at the station, I checked out the potion shop which had some interesting stuff, but it was the Withergate mining potion that caught my eye because maybe this would mean next time I can actually clear out the floor. Before going to bed that night, I wanted to craft a recycling machine, which you can see was going to cost an alarming amount of health. But I wanted to make this because I've been slowly collecting loads of trash from around the city, and I was hoping to process these into stuff that's worth selling. On day 68, I checked out the Withergate General Store, which sold a few random items behind the counter, though I do feel like this place is more of a furniture store than anything. I dealt with the day's discount seeds, broke one of these 3 giant rocks to clear more space for more crafting machines, but I just plonked down the recycling machine in an awkward spot for now because I really just wanted to get going on recycling some of the trash I'd accumulated. Then, whilst that was processing, I could work on the other rocks. I only actually got 1 refined plastic by the time I was done, but I moved the recycling machine to its final spot and queued all of my trash for recycling. You can probably try and guess what I did for this afternoon. If you guessed questing, you were correct. I was well and truly on that ticket grind. I took a break from that evening to fish around the city since I still had the museum's aquarium to fill, and in a very lucky find, I also pulled up this aquarium museum artifact, and I leveled up in fishing. For this level, I decided to increase the amount of XP gained from fishing nets. It was time for a new batch of roses on day 69. I left all of yesterday's donatables at the museum, then dropped into the music shop for the first time ever because someone wanted a record. Wait, how much? I kept hold of that record for now and went treasure hunting in the forest when I came across this dude named Clive. He runs a taxi service, but he seems to be a bit stuck at the moment, so I'm gonna have to go find his wheel for him. Luckily, it wasn't really all that far away. I slayed all the nearby monsters, which I actually got distracted with for most of the evening, but I did end up making it back to him eventually, only to find out I still can't use the taxi because he needs some iron for another part. On my route home, I passed this snackoon which I could finally feed after today's monster slaying, and there is what was probably supposed to be the first snackoon plushie. The path it was blocking led to this pretty well which gave me another 5 max mana. I was hoping this might refresh maybe each week, so let's hope I remember to test this. On day 70, I handed over that record to Kara, who paid me back in cookies. I can't help but feel completely ripped off because these are only worth about 1100 gold. I finally returned Albert's sword over 2 seasons since he first asked for it because I only found it yesterday while spending time in the forest, and in return I got a copper sword, which I guess is what he might have been using in the meantime. As I passed the counter, I returned Amanda's glasses, then I ran a book up to Calvin at the East Bridge that I picked up for him at the library whilst I was there. I thought it was about time I give Clive the iron for his taxi, and now that things were back up and running again, I found out it only goes between here and Sunhaven town, and a ride will set me back 200 gold, which could be worse, but you think I'd get a free ride for all that help. I checked which fall crops I was missing at the museum, and wanted to grab the ones I was missing at the farming store because clearly I missed these at the beginning of the season, but the pumpkins were going to take too long, so for now I just got the ghost peppers. I got around to tending the Withergate farm that afternoon and managed to get in a couple of quests too before the day was over. I woke up in Withergate on day 71 without a single crop ready to harvest. I returned to Sunhaven to clear up more of the farm and got a load of planks crafting in prep for house expansion. I rewarded myself for all that hard work by collecting forage and treasure on my beach, then checked out what I could buy with the 4 tokens, and the owlbear mount definitely caught my eye, but at 1000 tokens this is more of a long-term goal. With some of the planks ready, I got a nice little boost in income. Then I got the boat back to Withergate to set up a second planting area because that first bit was starting to overflow, and more crops means more tickets. That night, I decided to have a little go on the Ferris wheel because it was only 15 tickets. I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I love that they added dialogue as you make your way around to sort of add to the immersion, a very nice touch. I also got some Basu to tell me my fortune for 15 tickets, and they essentially just shoved probably the inside of an old fortune cookie in my hand, so yeah. But when I read it, it said I'll get a bounty of coins when I next place items in my shipping portal. I have no idea what the lucky numbers mean, but is that fortune just referring to what happens when you sell stuff, or is it talking about extra money? I still haven't figured this out. On day 72, I sent some rain for my crops before finally remembering about buying seeds from Christine, and not just those little stands. I picked up some snappy seeds for the museum and demon seeds because I felt like these would give me the quickest profit. I got these planted on the rooftop farm ASAP, then reached level 38 farming, harvesting the next batch of roses, so I maxed out the zookeeper skill, getting a little bit of gold each day for each animal I own. As I approached the mines, I got a cutscene with Solon, who seemed happy with my smithing progress. However, I'm guessing he was only being nice because he needed help with a big order of 15 mithril bars. But I'm nice, so I'll help. For today though, I focused on gathering adamant because I'll be needing it for keys. The following morning, I managed to make 2 adamant keys from last night's smelting, and I was relieved to notice that I did in fact have pumpkins growing already. I was excited about the amount of crops ready over in Withergate, but most of these crops are quite cheap, so I'll literally only be getting 263 tickets. I collected a 3rd adamant key from my anvil and made my way over to the museum to donate a ghost pepper, which I guess I was already growing, so I didn't miss any seeds to begin with. I also donated my final crop for the Withergate farming bundle, receiving a pumpkin helmet and a farming skill tome. With that tome, I increased the perks of having a leashed pet. Since I was now carrying around some iron keys for treasure, I opened this chest next to the museum, which had a mana tome and a cracked mage's ring. This sounded cool, but it gives you 10 max mana in exchange for 4 max health. I wasn't willing to make that trade, so I'll probably just sell it. The chests do respawn, so I tried opening this one again and was disappointed to find the exact same treasure as last time. Good if you want several of something, I guess. I don't really know what else I should have expected. Anyway, treasure looting over, time for some mine grinding for the rest of the day, but at level 32 mining I'll also give you a quick look at where my mining skills are, with the latest unlock increasing my pickaxe swing range by 10%. I begun day 74 over in Withergate. Look at all those crops ready to go. I was going to make almost 500 tickets with all those. There were some demon seeds discounted today, so I grabbed all of those along with another 20 full price ones. These are what will go in some of the spaces we just freed up. Then it was back to the mines again for the day where I permanently unlocked up to floor 26. But I did use some rusty keys to get me to the next treasure floor, which gave me some valuable items, but I did have to make room because my backpack was full. This large fishing net will make a great addition to my farm. On day 75, I accidentally went AFK in my house for a few in-game hours. I forget it's not like Stardew where it pauses if you tab out. I used a spell to chop loads of trees on the farm before handling my Withergate chores for the day. Here you can see why I chose the demon seeds. 480 tickets for these 20 crops, and they only take a few days to grow. These are what I'll keep reinvesting in till I have enough to pay off that loan. I'd still not given the bottom of the farm any love, so I decided to put up with the darkness to start tidying things up a bit, and I felt like I made some decent progress today. After sorting out my Withergate farm on day 76, I planted my weekly roses. This was a mines day, and you know what those look like by now, but I will tell you I unlocked the next section of floors, so now I should be able to find more mithril. On day 76, my first pumpkins came to fruition. My first large fishing net got me to level 17 fishing, and the loot goblin in me decided to increase the chance of pulling up treasure when fishing. I wanted to clear these trees that had sprung up, but I used my spell completely forgetting about the blueberry bush. No! This gave me a small heart attack, but thankfully it drops the sapling again, so you don't completely lose it. Bringing the pumpkin to the museum meant that I completed the full crops bundle, gaining me another scarecrow and a bunch of materials. Whilst I was there, I dropped off the last book from the Sunhaven mines. I bought myself a few more crops from the general store because my field was feeling pretty bare at this point, then I cleared this little part of the farm on my way to get the boat to Withergate. My next set of fast-growing demon seeds were ready. These are literally so good, and I'm so sad about how long it took me to find out about these, so obviously my final job of the day was to fill the farm with more, and there were even more ready on day 78. We'll have that loan paid off in no time. For level 40 farming, I went with increased mana regen whilst on the farm. I got another 40 seeds down today, then I came back to Sunhaven to check on my animals and collect their goodies. I foraged around town for a bit before spending the rest of the day progressing the mines again. On day 79, I tended to both of my farms and got some more quests done in Withergate because these are a great way of getting some free seeds. On this day, I bought another 60 demon seeds to fill up the newer part of my farm. I decided to mix things up that afternoon by doing some quests in Sunhaven instead, especially since I was able to finish Solon's order for those 15 mithril bars. I'll take a free extra mining tome, which I used on giving bonus damage when using crafted armor. I checked on the beach to see it was a disaster again. I guess I'm the only one who bothers to clean the place up, but hey, I'll take the extra freebies. I even cleared up all the wood this time. My night was for adding more paths on the farm, this time towards Sharon's boat to Withergate, but as usual, I ran out before I was done. I finished this off on day 80, but annoyingly, this is as close as you can place them to the exit. That's so far away. I added some of the remaining ones up here to improve this area a bit, then began with the painful process of untilling these tiles because I wanted to adjust where my crops grow. Instead, I wanted one long field growing downwards. I just felt I'd be able to keep things a bit tidier that way. My chests were getting cramped, so I crafted a couple more to reorganize again, and this time I actually color-coded some of them to make things easier to find. Working on the Sunhaven farm made me almost forget about my Withergate farm, but I made it over there with just enough time to work on the crops there. However, I didn't have enough time to buy another set of seeds today. I did go pick up another 60 the morning of day 81. Back at home, I crafted a fridge which I had to make room for in my tiny home. I'd been accumulating a lot of ingredients and these were clogging up my chests, but you can also cook directly from the fridges, if I do ever get around to cooking anything. I'm definitely gonna need at least one more fridge though. I came back to Withergate on my quest for more tickets and XP, then got back on with clearing up the rooftop farm. I rounded off with some fishing there. Look how difficult this one is to catch, and somehow I managed it. It's pretty cool looking. I got quite a few new catches that night and made it to bed with not long to spare before midnight. Waking up in Withergate on day 82 meant I got to harvest all these demon crops nice and early. That's over 1,400 tickets. I did go get more seeds, but especially in planting these, that should mean we have more than enough on the farm now to be able to pay off the loan once they all come to fruition. I mustered up the energy to break those huge rocks that take a ridiculous amount of hits to break with this pickaxe, then it was back to Sunhaven to donate a couple of artifacts to the exploration bundle in the museum. Just 2 more to go. I also donated a fishing artifact that I pulled up whilst fishing last night, and of course we added those fish to the aquarium. I watched my furniture table craft a wooden table I needed for a quest, which I promptly handed over to Kitty. I swear I've done this loads of times for her. Her house must be full of wooden tables by now. On day 83, I planted my 3 roses around the new bee house location and had to return Giuseppe's tools to him again. My next stop was watering in Withergate and turning in a quick quest which gave me enough XP to get me to level 27 combat. I felt like a smart choice would be able to increase armor for every nearby enemy. I was out of mithril again, so I had to mine the rest of the day away for more. On day 84, I had a colossal Withergate crop harvest, which should just enough get me about tickets to finally pay back the loan. I fished on the Sunhaven farm whilst waiting for the Halloween festival, catching the terrifying vampire piranha. Then I spoke to Bernard in the town square to kick off the festivities. I found a couple of cute Halloween pets for sale, and obviously I bought a witch cat who will be my new companion now. I also had a look at the gift shop next door, which sold spooky food and furniture, but I'll leave those for a future year. I did a bit of trick-or-treating, which gives you candies, giving a variety of buffs, and these were mostly movement speed. I do think that's everything to see at the Halloween festival, so I went home, but if you've played this and I missed something here, please do let me know. When I got home, I was so distracted with crafting that I ended up passing out. What a way to end the season. Day 85 was the first day of winter, but all I could think about was gathering everything from my Withergate farm and paying off my loan with Flemmet. I'm officially a citizen of Withergate. I beelined all the way up to the Withergate castle. Screw planting crops, this was more important today. I was very politely greeted by Cordelia, who escorted me to King Minos' room, and the Demon King looked awesome. I told him the truth about how I got here. I still tried to be nice to scary looking people, at least at first, because sometimes you might just need to work your way through that tough outer shell. When I told him I needed to speak to Dinas to stop the darkness, he explained that this is what the town wanted. The monster folk needed to live in the dark for their own safety. Before I could speak to the dragon, I needed to earn the king's trust by bringing him 10 glorite crystals. It seems they're not so concerned about damage to the forest here. I tracked down the Withergate forest and almost got killed by a horde of enemies there, but when I made it to the glorite area, I was met with those stupid bandits again. Luckily, I had a buttload of gold on me, so I paid them off and they got out of my way, which meant I made it back to the castle again by lunchtime. When I got to the throne room though, I witnessed a monster being punished for something or other. The original sentence was 1,000 years as a sewer ferryman, but that job's already taken by Sharon, so he was ejected from the castle till a more suitable punishment could be found.
Bye, have a great time.
I was a bit worried about my turn now, but he seemed happy with what I brought. Cordelia still wasn't so sure of me though. She was worried that I was here to try and fight Dinas. Listen, I just want to talk. King Minos deferred the decision to his son Darius, who would be the future king. He didn't care about me personally, more the fact that I actually made it to Withergate in the first place, and he was concerned that perhaps others who come here won't be so peaceful, so I was kicked out of the castle. Now what? I guess I should speak to Lucia. When I emerged from the sewer, I found a treasure box that I had the correct key for. Inside were 2 candy apples and a glow ring. I put the ring straight on because this would be great for Withergate and night times on my farm. Well, no better time than the present to get my seeds sorted for the season. Sunhaven actually has a fun variety of crops to grow even in winter, so I brought a few of each of them for the museum and ingredients. Whilst I was still in town, I did report back to Lucia and I was asked to join the town leadership meeting tomorrow to discuss the next steps. Given the hour, I needed to get home ASAP to plant those seeds, but then I found a snackoon blocking the main entrance to the farm. 50 bananas was a tall order, but I don't think we really have any choice. I didn't actually finish buying the seeds earlier because of my full backpack, so I had to dump a load of stuff back at home and return to the farming shop before it closed. I picked up the rest of the bananas I needed and whatever else I missed earlier. Then I got to work planting even though it was late. Needless to say, I barely got anything done before I had to hit the hay. Overnight, a fog barrier appeared at the train station. Not this again. Elios managed to reach me on day 86 to call me over once I've had my meeting with the town today. I came outside to find out this season's threat was freezing my crops. There was no time to dwell on that right now though because we had work to do before the meeting. I got everything done so quick that I needed to kill more time, so I handed a quest item to Peter so I could still do something productive. It was then time for the big meeting. They decided it was now going to be in front of the entire town to try and dispel some of the panic. Lucia gave the situational update, but asked me to talk about my journey across the other regions. I told them I lived amongst the people of Withergate. The monster folk aren't so bad. Well, except for this one big slimy guy, but he's harmless. And honestly, Withergate is awesome. Like, come on, they have a carnival. To try and reassure them, I said peace with Withergate was an option, which made everyone panic a little, but when I told them I'll be taking this up with the Guardian Dragon, the crowd went wild. The town was no longer worried, and with that over with, I booked it straight to Rosa to get an escort to Elios, but it seems the soldiers were preparing for an attack, and at this point, she believed I didn't need an escort anymore anyway. I needed to psych myself up a bit, so I went to the museum first. The part of the journey I was worried about was these cactus peeps, so I hopped, skipped and jumped past them all, and made it to Elios in one piece. He seemed happy with my journey so far, and had another blessing for me, But then a wave of concern came over him. Sunhaven was under attack. He got me to climb onto his back for a ride to town. I leapt off his back into the town square, a legendary entrance. The army had already driven the attackers outside of town, but they left a lot of darkness around in the form of these purple weeds, and there were still a few little monsters to tackle. Lucia thought she might be able to make a spell to get rid of it all, but we'd need to collect 1000 darkness essence for it to work. I say we as if I'm not going to have to do it alone. I got to work right away chopping down those plants and beating up those monsters, and on my travels I found this snackoon I'd never seen before and promptly forgot about it. No really, I only remembered about this seeing the footage and editing. I also found this orchard owned by a load of rabbits which I couldn't steal any apples from, and it seemed to not have been hit by the darkness. I could, however, help myself to some jam and honey. Don't mind if I do. Back to essence farming for the rest of the day, but before continuing with this on day 87, I had a load of bananas to harvest. I took a minute to chop up some trees here because things were getting a bit crowded. I even bought more bananas because I didn't have enough for the snackoon blocking my entrance. This entire day was supposed to be for collecting dark essence for Lucia, but as I passed through town, I got a cutscene with Rosa who wanted help defeating a pack of prickletots in the desert. Those are some of the scary cactus soldiers en route to the dragon's meat. I took much of the evening getting sidetracked with this task, and my god, these take some hitting. They hurt pretty bad too. I don't think I was ready for these because I was having to run away to stuff myself with food pretty frequently. I got nearly halfway through that quest before deciding to return to essence farming. You know, not like the town is under attack or anything. On day 88 I tended to my farm first, then chipped away at gathering essence, but those silly little prickletots were still on my mind. I hit level 31 combat, finishing off that quest, and I used that skill on my first combat spell, Chain Lightning. Even with the distraction, I still managed to collect the remaining essence that night. Lucia cast her spell and the fog barrier was lifted. The town was a bit more back to normal. Claude then came running up the road. He felt like he could have done something to stop things getting so bad between Sunhaven and Withergate and revealed his big secret to the town leadership. Claude gave me something that might show Withergate that there can be peace. This was the original copy of his concerto as an offering for them. Lucia also very quickly whipped up a proclamation of peace for me to take over there. I'll do that tomorrow though because I was exhausted. The newest batch of bananas was ready on day 89. I feel like I've grown them at this point because bananas is so fun to say. I found a few penguins waddling through town, and I'm pretty sure this is a Madagascar reference, and I am here for it. They are literally so cute. I gave the snackoon the last few bananas to get out of my way and gratefully took in the plushie. Then it was over to the museum with another banana to donate. I needed to pass through the farm to get the boat to Withergate when I found Bernard waiting outside with a request to help with the Winter Festival dinner. Makes sense to ask a farmer, I guess. Instead of just telling me what I needed though, I had to go all the way to the town hall to check the soup pot sitting outside. This is gonna be one hefty soup. Not one I'll eat though because it has mushrooms. I popped to the general store to grab some potato seeds because the crops in here grow during all seasons, and was pleased to find out that the chickens had laid more than enough eggs for the soup already. I finally made it to Withergate early that afternoon and handed Darius the peace offerings. Instead of bothering the king, Darius asked me to meet him at the castle to look over them. He wasn't all that impressed with Lucia's letter, but when I handed over Claude's original concerto, this got an entirely different reaction. It seemed to show if Sunhaven was good enough for the grand composer Claude, then maybe our town isn't so bad. Darius was convinced. He was ready to vouch for me to the king and said I could go on ahead and find the dragon. As a reward, I could choose between 10 max health or 10 max mana. I chose the health because I've been getting beat up pretty bad recently. I went on my way to the sanctum, and to get there I had to pass through this altar room where I met the altar keeper. I asked them to explain the bundles, and they said this is where I can make a variety of offerings to the moon dragon. It's another bundle system basically. Before delving too deep into that, I went to speak to Dinus first, who was resting on a huge pile of gems. A lot of these were actually glorite, amongst other valuable crystals, but he needed these to power the spell to keep Withergate in darkness. Instead of trying to fight the mighty beast, I told him I wanted to make an offering. I did try to confront him on my way out, but this didn't really go well. I was very much warned that the fight would be difficult. I'd need strong armor and food as absolute necessity, so I abruptly chickened out. We'll go the nicer route. No violence for us today. Let's have a look at these altars then. I was going to need quite the variety of items and riches, and you'll notice he actually asked for quite a large quantity of most of them, so we have our work cut out. For tonight though, I returned to my main farm to plant those potatoes for the soup, and got to bed at a sensible time. On day 90, I made another chest to house the altar donations separately from the museum ones. I gathered some of the items I already knew I had, and bought a load of noodles from Liam for the soup. I topped up on most of the seeds at the general store because I'll be needing these for diners too. This is probably the most I've had planted on the farm at once so far, but of course all that tilling and watering drained my mana very quickly, so whilst waiting for it to regen, I placed those paths that I made this morning. I then forgot what I was doing and spent all my mana again trying to chop these stumps. Even with the new extended field, I didn't have enough space for every seed, so I'm going to have to wait for more spots to open up to replant the remaining green root seeds. I arose on day 91 to realise I have so many crops to tend to. Good thing I enjoy the farming, although it does take a lot of time. Working so close to the bottom of my farm made me realise my beach was messy, so I stopped what I was doing to clean it up. Let's be honest, it was the treasure chest that caught my attention. This loot goblin was pleased. I added more ingredients to the soup pot, leaving just some potatoes to go. I'd not really been using these merchants in town, but today I needed to pick up the richest keepsake for another one of Dinus's bundles, and with the dragon still on my mind, I grinded for ore in the mines for the rest of the day and kinda ended up passing out there. As I exited the hospital the next morning, I found this Snakoon outside which was craving throw blankets and socks. I'm not sure if I want to feed you that, I don't really think that's safe. I came home to work on my farm chores, which gave me some new crops to donate to the museum. Nope, that's the library. You have no idea how many times I've made that mistake during this playthrough. Like, I've already started recording 200 days and I still make this mistake. Turns out I only had one new crop to donate, but hey, progress is progress. I smelted yesterday's mining goodies, then boated to Withergate to buy more seeds to start growing crops for more tickets, specifically for the Altar bundles. But I did have to take a trip back to Sunhaven real quick because I was yet to swap out the winter scarecrows here. I slept at Withergate that night so I could work on the rooftop farm first thing on day 93, but I went straight back to Sunhaven as soon as I could because I was homesick. Another new harvest meant more crops to donate to the museum. Then with the newly opened farm spaces, I'll be planting some honey flowers. It was really becoming a squeeze with the amount of crops I was trying to grow here, so I set up a smaller area on this plateau for the last few honey flowers, and as part of the process, I hit level 46 exploration whilst clearing up the trees. I felt like I now had enough paths to make use of the skill that boosts movement speed when using them. Then, as with many evenings, it was mines grind time, but I definitely decided to give this little wasp an ego boost tonight by totally intentionally pretending to die mid-battle. Thankfully, having more crops to harvest cheered me up on day 94. Who doesn't want to be greeted by potatoes in the morning? I added some of these potatoes to the soup pot, so now that was ready to go, and Bernard even materialised to show how pleased he was. After taking care of my Withergate crops, I wanted to go to the altar room to present some offerings because that chest was getting full, but I got lost in the castle and ended up on this balcony floor. I wanted to see what was in these side rooms, and the first had loads of treasure, a chest that needs a sunlight key, and a free chest with a load of gold in. Nice. The other room was just a storage room. Boring. I eventually found the altar room and got to dividing the goods. I even managed to complete the fruit bundle, which is the altar keeper's favourite. My reward was a butterfly ring, which protects you from an instance of damage every 30 seconds. This could be pretty good. I didn't manage to complete any other bundles, but I was pleased to be making some headway. On day 95, I harvested my demon crops, leveling me to 46 in farming, so I increased my chance to get mana orbs when harvesting crops using my skill point. I basically bankrupted myself buying more demon seeds, but this will very much be a worthy investment, and I'll get more from the shipping bin tonight anyway. There were even more crops to glow when I got home. This brings me so much joy. I took another library detour on my way to the museum, and after today's donation, we only have a few winter crops to go. Having given away most of my fruit to Dinus, I thought it would be wise to forage and rebuild my stockpiles. I came home via the beach and cleaned things up again, continuing the cleanup on this little section which, not gonna lie, I forgot existed till now. Another day, another harvest for day 96. I'm really enjoying all the winter farming on this game. The crop field was now as good as empty, so I picked up some of the purple eggplant seeds purely for profit. Not even sure if these are the best, but these are what I went with. Then I repeated another evening in the mines. I reached the next treasure floor using rusty keys, so I collected my loot and was baffled by this glorite ore I'd now gotten a few of, because I hadn't figured out how to use this yet. Then I booked it home because I wasn't about to pass out in the mines for the third time this season. Day 97 started with my morning crop routine, and then made this another mining day where I brought 2 mithril keys to unlock floors, but that wasn't enough to get to the treasure floor, so I grinded for ore again for the day. I made another mithril key on day 98, then realised I'd completely forgotten about my Withergate crops for a few days, so the growth was now all unsatisfying and uneven. Whoops! I ended up leaving the fruiting ones till the rest are ready so I can harvest them all at once, then prep the remaining planting areas for another 80 demon seeds. Hopefully I actually remembered to come back and tend to these. I hit up the mines yet again that afternoon and permanently unlocked the door to that next treasure floor. I didn't go in today because there's an ore muncher on that floor and I knew for a fact without even looking that I didn't have enough of anything, so I just spent another evening grinding. On day 99, I checked on my animals and gave them a little pet before collecting my mana boost from the town fountain. I'd been doing this a fair amount, but not necessarily the once a week that could give its full potential. I donated another crop to the winter bundle, leaving just one more to go, which gave me doubts if I even planted the last one. These take 14 days to grow, so I thought I should have had one of these by now if I'd remembered to grow them. Problem is, there are only 13 days left of the season, so if I had any hope of getting these in time, I'd need fertilizer, and to make fertilizer, I'd need a composter. I whipped one up real quick and plonked it down where I was so I could check what it needed. I'll be wanting the fire fertilizer because this speeds up crop growth, but one of the ingredients was regular compost, so I got some crafting. This was going to take a few hours, so I paid another visit to the altar room in the meantime. Now, the only thing left for the crop bundle is the corn, which I forgot to buy. This was the perfect time to check on my rooftop farm, which had the next batch of demon crops to harvest, and I stayed overnight in the dingy apartment so I could get on with farming here the next day. I came home to collect that compost and decided in the end to go with the advanced fertilizer so I could be sure the seeds would be done in time. Here's the kicker though, look what was ready to harvest in my field today. Yup, that's the blue moon fruit. I just did all of that for nothing. I grew those new seeds anyway purely out of spite, and then I kind of forgot to ship all those eggplants I harvested. That's because I had the mines on my mind again. I wanted to know what that ore muncher wanted. An entire stack of stone is going to take some grinding because I'd been using loads for parts, but the ores it wanted weren't too bad. In fact, I had all of the mithril with me. I mined the remainder of the day away, grinding for the rest. By the end of the night, all I needed was the diamonds, and the rest of the stone. On day 101, I moved that composter to a spot I felt like made more sense. I don't know, I just think it fits here better. Even though they're literally only worth 1 gold, I'd shipped the spare books I'd accumulated to free up space. Though notice how I still haven't shipped those freaking eggplants. On my way to the mines, I said hello to Harris and brought all the stone towards the ore muncher. I did also grab all the wood because I'll probably need it at some point. I brought the 2 diamonds with me as well, so now all I need was a few hundred stone, so I better get to work. I had just about enough time that night to drop off the remaining stone and make it to bed without passing out. On day 102, I headed straight to the new mines floor I unlocked last night. As you can see, the rocks are getting a little harder to mine down here. These floors were now really important because I was starting to find my first sunite ore, which I'll need for keys and bundles. This is where I hit level 42 mining, and with my skill point, I increased the chance to critically damage nodes, even if it was tiny. Any bonus in damage would help in these depths. I ran into a little problem though. Like the rocks, the enemies down here are a fair amount stronger, so I ended up dying. For a calmer afternoon, I ended up buying a buttload more eggplants because my farm was basically empty of crops now. I probably should have calculated how many I needed though, because these 100 seeds didn't really cover that much area, so I did have to go back for more, meaning my entire evening was spent reseeding and watering my field. This did mean I had loads of watering to do on day 103. Yes, I had the rain spell, but it just means using so much mana. I finally got around to donating the final winter crop to the museum, and my rewards were a seed maker, winter scarecrow, and some watermelon vine seeds. Speaking of rewards, I checked the front desk for more rewards and actually got a few mana potions and a bit of bonus gold. One of the mana potions went straight to the alchemy bundle. Did Covington not realise he's kept hold of a perfectly good artifact? I wanted to see what I'd need to craft the remaining potions for the bundle, and some of them needed dragon scales which I couldn't remember where to get. Turns out these are from the Nelvari mines, and I'll also need to spend more time in the Withergate mines to get more candies too. Ah right, yes, Withergate, the other farm. I haven't been for a while. This side was looking a little unloved, but thankfully the other had a bountiful harvest waiting for me. I didn't buy more seeds today yet because I wanted to drop into the mines while I was there. I checked Baberta's potion store first and was delighted to find a couple of the ones from the museum for sale. I'll just need to get more candy corn. So I got straight down to business by using another kingly ticket. I actually bought a few of these because I managed to clear several floors that day, and after an entire afternoon of grinding, I accumulated nearly 500 candy corn, which meant I had more than enough for one of each of the incredible potions. I had a quick peek at Batrick's stall as well, and he's selling some awesome looking gear, but I'm not sure yet if I'll grind for this, we'll see. I still had a little bit of time that night, so I picked up some more demon seeds, but then I somehow lost track and passed out in the middle of watering. Luckily, I woke up in my apartment the next morning, so I couldn't forget to tend to the farm. I came home to water all of my eggplants, then I headed on over to the museum to drop off a book I found in the Withergate mines, as well as all of those potions I bought yesterday. I went for a bit of fruit picking in town before chipping away at some fishing because the fish bundles I definitely left the most neglected, and fishing was by far my lowest level. For my level 22 skill, I chose to make the win area of the minigame a little larger. I fished till after sundown, and to be honest, I'm proud of myself for staying down there so long. This meant that first thing on day 105, I could donate a fishing artifact and a whole bunch of fish to the aquarium. Now that is what I call progress. Those donations got me a new reward from the front desk of 40 magic fertilizer, which combines the effects from the fire, water and earth fertilizer, and of course I took the extra gold. My next stop on the donation run was Dynas's Altars, where I completed the mining bundle, my reward for which was the King's Lost Mines key. This grants me access to the glorite mines, as well as the forge and anvil specifically for crafting glorite tools and weapons. I couldn't help rushing in right away, but the glorite nodes here take so many hits with an adamant pickaxe, so even getting a single bar will truly be a grind. I did use my mining spell here where there were groups of nodes, but even then they still take quite a bit of hitting. Once I emptied that floor, I came out to unlock the second gate, granting me access to the crafting area. The forge looks so cool, and I was overjoyed to see I had enough ore for a couple of bars. And look at all these things we can make. They're powerful and they look amazing. I did get around to tending to the rooftop farm that evening, then I took a look at the weirdest vending machine I'd ever seen. I wanted the defense potion here for the museum, but this really didn't go to plan. I pretended to be Dynus, but that didn't work, so I tried to call a manager, but nobody seemed to hear me either. The only thing I could do now was randomly press loads of buttons, and it seemed to be doing something, but then the machine turned upside down. I flipped on my own head so things were the right way up, and in response it dispensed me a glob of ectoplasm. Lovely. I wiped away the goo to find my potion underneath. My goodness, I'm never using that thing again. I collected loads of dead planks from my crafting table here, which I only made for the gold. It's so satisfying watching all this roll in, then decided to crash at my city apartment that night. The footage for days 106 and 107 got corrupted, and I have no idea what happens these days, but it looks like I expanded my house and built more fridges, so my living quarters were more organised and less cramped. Day 108 began with the usual farm chores. I'd also made the last tickets needed to hand over to Dynus, which essentially bought me the Cerberus mount, my first ever mount in the game. For some reason, I still went through the city on foot, but I did finally summon it when I got back to Sunhaven, and this thing is large and in charge. It creeps me out a little so I don't end up using it that much. This day I planned to spend in the mines because now I had a goal of reaching the bottom before the end of the year, so I have lots of sunlight to gather. Annoyingly though, I passed out again. After returning from the hospital on day 109, I set up this new field properly. It was a bit out of sight out of mind till now. It was too late to plant winter crops here at this point, so it's just ready to go for spring. I moved the plushie collection inside the house before getting in an afternoon of fishing, including catching my first actual winter fish. I also caught the lobster for the large fish tank, and found this treasure chest in my inventory which I couldn't figure out what to do with till I got back home and clicked it from my hotbar, and it just had a few tickets inside. On day 110, I was greeted with a farm full of ripe eggplants. This will be my last major harvest of the year for over 35,000 gold. It suddenly occurred to me that I paid no attention to the bundles in the gem room. We've gotten the golden bundle, which I should be able to find the pomegranate for, but I'll have to figure out how to get the rest. The Nilvari Mines bundle has some dragon scales and stuff, and the Withergate bundle has some candies. I've got most of the gems for this bundle at home, and the bars should be alright to handle too. I dropped in the Glory one whilst I was there. My griffin flew me to Nilvari for the first time in a while because I wanted to work on gathering stuff in the mines there for the day. I ended up being done there by the evening, so I came home to craft more mithril keys and go back another day. Any remaining time that night was spent chopping down trees. On day 111, I flew straight back to the Nilvari mines to gather more scales with some mithril keys. After clearing my first floor of the day, I ran to the bottom of the stairs to check the merchants here. You can buy these items with mana shards from the mines, including essences which increase specific stats permanently, and elven steel ore which I'll need for the museum. At 75 shards per piece of ore, I mined the rest of the day away because it does take a while to build up a good quantity, and I managed to buy another couple of ore pieces that evening. On day 112, I successfully smelted my first elven steel bar and donated it to the museum without delay because it was the last item I needed for the bars bundle. This rewarded me with the magma armor set, which was miles better than anything I was currently wearing, so I had no hesitation in swapping that out. Whilst I was there, I deposited the golden mana orbs for the money bundle, and as usual I was short on tickets. Well, I better get more demon seeds planted. I then took the travel to Nilvari to start crafting mana drops for yet another bundle. I ignored my neglected and overgrown Nilvari farm because I was late for the winter festival. Being the most important person in town though, everyone waited for me obviously. Lucia gave a little speech to round off the year, then the town feasted together. I enjoyed myself, even if the soup did contain mushrooms. I checked out the holiday shop which sold a variety of festive foods and some holiday furniture options. Then I told Bernard I was ready to begin the gifting tradition, only to be told I couldn't take part because I didn't contribute a gift this year. I must have missed a letter or dialogue line somewhere because I didn't know how or where I was supposed to have done this, so we'll check this out next year. I guess all that's left is to head home and go to bed. Wow, what a year. My first 112 days in Sunhaven have been absolutely packed with adventures and shenanigans. I am truly adoring how much story and detail there is in this game. There is so much to do, and the flexibility of which path to take and when is also a great touch. I'm so excited to see what awaits us for next year, and I hope you'll come along with me for the ride. Now for the giveaway details. If you want a chance to win a Steam key for Sunhaven, please leave a comment with the sun emoji and whatever else you might want to say. Join the Discord server linked in the description, and head to the giveaway channel to post a screenshot of your comment. Entry will close 1 week after the video premieres, and the winner will be announced the day after that. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more 100 days content ready for you on the channel, with more to come in the future. Thank you so much to my channel members, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!